What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is a story where Issei was betrayed and fused with Great Red. Only after sealing Trihexa, something went wrong. It caused a change in a boy, a change that would make the underworld take him more seriously. Perhaps, was it a punishment for all those years of being a pervert? Does he break? Does he go insane? Only time will tell. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations. Now, let's get into the story. A teenage boy, around 17 years old. He had chocolate brown hair and yellowish eyes, and a really shitty haircut with twin tails. From what we could see, he was lying in a red landscape. It looked like Mars. The landscape was full of crimson red flames, but the boy didn't seem bothered by it. If anything, it was calming the boy down. He was sleeping. The sky was blood red. It looked like a galaxy. Suddenly, a mighty voice spoke. "Tell me, boy, are you afraid?" the voice spoke. The teenager woke up, but his eyes showed no emotion. The only person that was in the space was the teenager, nobody else. Who said that? The teen looked up into the sky. His face and eyes still showed no emotion. A tear showed up into the sky, and the tear widened. Out of the tear came a massive red western dragon with a large horn on his snout. It had 2 sets of wings and golden eyes. At least from what the boy could see, it looked like the dragon was about 100 meters in overall length. Scared? Who even are you? The boy asked as he looked at the dragon. Ha, you still can't recognize me at first sight, even after all this time, the dragon spoke. The boy took a minute to think. He finally found out who the dragon was. He had trouble speaking. His legs were trembling for some reason. Eventually, the boy finally gathered up the courage to speak. "Gee, Great Red," the boy muttered. So you do remember," the now known Great Red spoke. The dragon finally decided to turn its head to the boy, slowly flying down to the ground. "Boy, or should I say, Issei Hyodo, do you know why I am here?" Great asked. The boy's face finally showed a tinge of emotion. He was confused, however. "Sai, I'm sorry, I don't know," Issei responded. I've been watching you ever since you were born. You're a very interesting person, you know that," Great Red said. Issei's eyes widened at what the dragon just said, but he composed himself, at least to some degree. Is that a compliment?" Issei asked. "Yes, you should be honored. After all, you got a compliment from such a mighty being," Great Red said. "You know, Issei, Drake knew what he was doing when he chose you. You soon caught my interest after I first saw you. I sensed great potential in you, so I made a decision. You will be my host. I will give you a chance to see if you are worthy of me," Great Red said with pride in his voice. Issei's eyes looked like dinner plates. Did he hear the dragon correctly? He was going to host the Great Red. What are you talking about?" Issei yelled. "Sai, you will soon understand," Great Red said. The dragon's body started glowing crimson red. It condensed itself into a small red and gold orb. The orb soon made its way to the teenager. It floated in front of him for a while. All the boy could do was stare. For some reason, he couldn't move. Finally, the orb moved. It moved into Issei's chest. Words cannot describe how much pain the boy was feeling. It was immeasurable. After a minute or so, the orb disappeared. It was in the boy's body. However, it was dormant. He would have to awaken it. He woke up. Gah! Issei was seen panicking and breathing heavily in his bed. The windows in his room were closed, and so were the blinds. But a small ray of sunlight was emanating through the windows, due to one of the blinds being left sideways, unlike the rest. It was about 6 a.m. in the town of Kuo. Issei's room looked like a mess. There was clothing thrown everywhere. His desk was piled with complete homework and school textbooks. But that wasn't the main concern. That was Issei. He looked terrible. His eyes looked red and were extremely puffy. Did he cry himself to sleep? His skin held tons of bruises. There were cuts on his skin and blood stains under those cuts. He looked extremely pale, indicating that he hadn't been getting much sunlight lately. His eyes, it held no emotion. He looked like tears weren't the only thing that was coming out of his eyes, blood too. He looked like he was going to end it all. He was in an extreme state of depression. He had been getting nightmares about them. Issei barely had the strength to even speak, but he still tried nonetheless. Why Drake? Can you hear me?" Issei managed to mutter. Issei heard a loud yawn inside his head. Of course, it was his partner and friend, Drake. Yes, partner, loud and clear, Drake said. But something was off. Even Drake didn't sound right. He wasn't depressed. Rather, he was feeling terrible for his host. I know, it's weird that I'm talking to you this way, but I don't have the strength to speak. Aside from that, did you see that dream last night? Issei asked. Drake's eyes widened at the sudden memory he had. It was Issei's dream. Yes, I did. However, don't think otherwise. The being you call Great Red really chose you as his host, Drake said. They both couldn't believe it, but they both still had questions. Why? Sigh, normally, I'd say you should train to awaken the skier. But in your state, I would not recommend that, Drake said. Issei slowly but surely turned his head to his left arm. He didn't want to admit it, but he was right. Nobody knew how, but Issei slowly got up from his bed and stood up. It was a miracle how he didn't fall down in pain. He was wearing a simple white t-shirt and black shorts. His legs were trembling. How did he not drop to his knees in pain? I mean, his condition was terrible. Drake saw what his partner was doing. He immediately tried to stop him, so he spoke. Issei, please, don't do this to yourself. Don't make yourself suffer anymore. Just rest. Drake looked like he was about to cry if you saw his face. He actually cared deeply for his partner's, no, friend's well-being. He hated seeing him in his current condition. If only he could help somehow. But he couldn't. He was just a soul sealed in a sacred gear. Nothing more. Issei was the only host who saw Drake as a friend, rather than a tool for fighting. He couldn't bear it. He just wanted to help his broken friend. But how? He could literally do nothing. Absolutely nothing. What a friend he was. Truly the worst. Drake, please, I'll be fine. I'm just going to go use the bathroom. I can't just stay in my bedroom all day, Issei replied. Issei's condition was so bad that he couldn't even talk. Just what could have caused such despair in the boy? And why? Issei walked out of his room. With his legs still trembling, he walked down the staircase. His hands were being dragged against the cold, metal railing. It was still pretty dark in the Hyodo residence, regardless if it was morning. He walked past the room of Rias Gremory. The door was left open. Issei decided to step in, because, well, nobody was in the house, except for Issei. The room was luxurious. There was a white and gold king-sized bed in the top middle part of the room. Right across from the bed was a 75-inch flat-screen TV. On one side of the room, the wall was just a window, showing the entire view of the town of Kuo. On the other side of the room was a large bookshelf. It was filled to the brim with books based on different types of legends and mythologies. And next to the bookshelf was a white and gold couch. It was made out of an expensive type of leather, with a small blanket on the couch, hanging from the back of the couch. Issei stood there for a few minutes, just observing the room he was now in. After what seemed like an eternity, he finally decided to walk out. He nearly fell twice while walking out of the room. He took a couple more steps out of the room, finally making it to the bathroom. Issei walked in, turning on the light the second he walked in. Issei just stared at himself in the mirror. He looked horrible. If anyone saw him, they would think he had gone through hell. Absolutely war-torn. I don't understand. Why did this happen? What did I do to deserve this? Is it because I'm a pervert? Because I'm nice? Just why? Haven't I suffered enough? Maybe if I just end it all, they would feel even a little remorse. Even the smallest, Issei thought. Drake had enough. Issei, I'm sorry I couldn't help but listen to your thoughts. But please, I beg you, don't think like this. You're thinking of ending it all. For whatever reason your mates did such a thing. I promise you, it's not because you're nice. There is no way that's the case. Don't ever go thinking like that again. Please stop, Drake roared. Issei heard what the dragon said. He knew he was right, but he had no response, not even a thought. The boy took off his shirt for whatever reason, but his torso looked terrible. There were 8 black spots surrounding his torso. 3 spots on his stomach represented a triangle. There was 1 black spot on each of his shoulders. There was 1 spot on each of his elbows as well, in total, 2 spots on each arm. And finally, a massive black spot on this back. If you haven't guessed by now, the spots are the evil pieces. They malfunction for a reason I will get into in the next chapter. And now, it's absorbing his life force. Partner, if you don't do something about those pieces, you will die a painful death in 3 days, Drake said in a sad voice. Wow, they couldn't believe it. Is this how Issei was going to die? Just like this? Issei already tried contacting everyone he knew for help, but nobody, not a single would answer when he most needed it. Gasper was in the hospital with Valerie, waiting for her recovery. Azazel was almost always in the Grigori, due to recent events with his faction. Sir Chex, Grafia, Michael, and Vali were all busy with something related to the three factions. Rosweiss was called back into the Norse pantheon by Odin. It had something to do with the seal trapping Trihexa, or 666. The orc, you'll see. And the student council was far too busy with their king's project. In the end, nothing could be done. Issei was just going to die a sad and pathetic death, and nothing could be done. Well, Drake, it was nice knowing you. Maybe when I die, they'll realize what they had done, and just feel a little remorse. I just wanted to feel loved, and instead, I because their shield, just someone they could use. In the end, I'm worthless. Drake heard what the boy said, and he was right. He couldn't do anything. He was going to die. But neither of them knew. He was already awake. Drake, what can I do? Issei thought. Finally wanna try and save yourself. Alright, I have an idea. But if it doesn't work, you will die. Flashback, 1 day prior. A certain brown-haired boy is seen walking in the halls of Kuo Academy, probably in no direction in particular. Eventually, a blonde teenager with gray eyes approaches the boy. Hey Issei, the blonde boy said. Issei quickly turned his head to the right a bit to see Kiba walking towards him in a formal manner. He would always walk like that. Issei always found it a little weird. Oh, hey Kiba, how are you? Issei asked. Good man, you? I've got some great news too, Kiba spoke. Oh, really now? Spill it, man, Issei said. Issei did look a little anxious from what Kiba said, but he never realized. From what Koneko said, Rias and Akeno plan on coming back today from college. They have a day off. However, I doubt that they're here right now, Kiba explained. Issei's eyes widened in excitement. He hadn't seen those two in about a month and a half. No way, you're not just jerking me off, are you? Issei asked anxiously. Kiba was happy to see his friend so happy. After all, he was in love with those girls, and they loved him back, right? Haha, I wouldn't lie to you. Come on, let's get to the clubroom, Kiba said. They both began to walk to the clubroom. They were on the other side of the school, so they were rather far away. But Issei had a smile on his face during the entire walk. Rias, Akeno, I've missed them so much. I'm so happy I'll be able to see them again. Even after all this time, I'll never stop loving those two, Issei thought. Alright, we're finally here. But are they here yet? Issei asked. As Issei asked this question, Kiba looked at his phone and smiled. Seems that way. Let's go, Kiba said. As the two were walking, Drake on the other hand, was feeling uneasy for whatever reason. Oh god, why this feeling again? Is something going to happen to Issei again? I'm hoping not, and whatever will happen, I doubt he's going to be able to defend himself using the sacred gear. Just what does today have in store for you, Issei? Drake thought. Issei slowly opened the double door into the clubroom. Creak. Drake immediately tensed up as soon as Issei entered the clubroom. Why? But Issei felt different, however. It felt like an eternity, even if it was 2 months, but there they were. Rias was seen at her normal desk, working on what seemed to be college work. And Akeno was standing right next to her helping her out, but it looked like she had some work of her own as well. Rias, Akeno, how are you? It's been too long, Issei said. Normally, those two would immediately jump up at him in excitement, but they just sat there, unfazed. They didn't even reply to his words. Maybe she just didn't hear him for whatever reason. Rias, Akeno, Issei spoke again, finally getting the attention of the two. Sigh, hello Issei, it's been a while. Rias spoke, not even glancing at Issei, rather, she was more focused on her work. Issei was taken aback at the cold tone she used to speak with Issei. Issei wondered why they were acting like this. Maybe college work got to them. Is it that difficult? Hello Issei, yes it has been a while. It's nice to see you again, Akeno said. She used the same tone that Rias used. Well, what's going on? But he could already tell. Yeah, something is off, and they're trying to hide it, Issei thought. So you sensed something off about those two, partner? Drake asked his host mentally. Yeah, what's going on? This isn't like them, Issei said. Don't question them. First, let them do their thing. It'll all play out, Drake said. Alright, I'll stay shut, Issei said. As Issei was talking with his friend, Kiba spoke. Hey you two, how have you been? Has college been treating you well? Kiba asked the two women in front of him. Yes, Kiba is asking the one question I couldn't ask. Thanks, Issei thought. The two finally glanced up to look at Kiba. They didn't do the same with Issei. They just spoke to him in a monotone voice. But with Kiba, it had some type of emotion, rather than any. Yes, Kiba. I'm sorry. The college has been keeping us a lot busier than we thought it would. But today, we had a day off. We decided to check up on how everyone is doing, right, Akeno? Rias explained. Yes, but from the looks of it, everything seems to be going well. It looks like we made the right decision when we made Asuya the club president, Akeno said. Asuya was seen looking out the windows of the orc. She turned her head back to Akeno as soon as she finished speaking. Thanks, Akeno. All of us have been doing well, and I've been enjoying being president, Asuya said. It was strange. Issei knew Asuya heard how she spoke to him, so why didn't she say anything? Did she let her say that on purpose? As Asuya said this, someone else spoke. Rias, Akeno, I've been doing better myself. I and Kuroka are slowly getting along. Bet she's also getting help from Yasaka, Koneko said. Oh, I'm glad to know Kuroka is doing better. I'm happy for her, Rias spoke. As the others were speaking with each other, Issei was looking around the room. He saw that Irina and Zenobia were on the other side of the room. However, they weren't speaking at all. They just stayed quiet. They really didn't have any expression on their face. It was odd nonetheless. Issei, maybe you should leave. I have an uneasy feeling about being around them, Drake said. His voice sounded a lot more panicked. Why? Why Drake? These are my friends. Why should I leave? Issei asked in a confused tone. Listen, partner. I feel as if something is off. As a 500,000-year-old dragon, I know when something is off, Drake said, sounding even more panicked. Drake, please calm down. I'll leave soon, I swear, Issei said. Alright, good. Just be as quick as possible, Drake said. However, in reality, Issei's bangs were covering his eyes. If anyone were to look close enough, they would see a golden glow terminating from his eyes. He slowly walked up to Rias. So that's it, you just came to check on us, Issei said in a cold voice, his bangs still covering his eyes. Rias immediately picked up on his cold tone. She did the exact same. She sharpened her voice, in a strict manner. Yes, Issei. That's the only reason why we came here. We simply don't have time to be around you guys anymore, as college work is putting a strain on me, and Akeno being the vice president and I being the president of the faculty is making it that much harder on us. But our senpai is taking care of our work from time to time again. It was strange. Rias mentioned this, senpai, in a strange way, kinda a sexual way. Now, if you'll excuse us, we must go back to our dorm. If the rest of you want, you may accompany us, Akeno said. The rest of the orc except Kiba and Issei nodded in agreement. Oh, Kiba, I forgot to mention something, Rias said. Kiba turned back and looked at Rias with a curious look. Yes, Rias, Kiba asked. Ever since I and Akeno left the orc, the contract requests have been uprising, and since Issei isn't the best at contracts, I have to ask you to cover a few more for the week. Kiba's face was full of shock, but Issei stood still with his bangs still covering his eyes. She never thought that she would outright insult his friend like that. Even if she was right, it was still not a good thing to say. But Kiba stood there, silent, not even a breath. Sigh, I'll take your silence as a yes, Rias said. Alright Rias, let's go, Akeno said. Right, Rias said. The entire orc and Rias and Akeno walked out of the clubroom, leaving Issei and Kiba alone. Issei was still quiet. Kiba didn't know what to do. He wanted to speak with Issei, but for some reason, he couldn't. What was stopping him? It wasn't hard, so why? But Kiba decided to take his mind off that for now. The fact that he had to change his schedule because of a few more contracts was annoying. He didn't even have time to spar. Sparring was the only thing that would keep Issei from thinking about this, and now, there wasn't even time for that. A month and a half, and that's it. That's all you say. I don't understand. Why have things changed so much? What happened? Issei roared. The rant snapped Kiba out of his thoughts. All he could do was stare. What could he say? He could try to help, but he didn't. What was stopping him? I need answers. I need to know. What happened? Issei said. Issei kicked the clubroom door down, breaking it and leaving splinters and wood pieces across the floor of the hallway. Issei ran out of the clubroom, like a thief running out of a bank, leaving Kiba in the clubroom, to stare at the broken door. 10 minutes later, Issei is seen running in the streets of the town of Kuo. Where was he running? The Kuo College course. Issei, listen. I know you want answers, but please, you can ask them another time. I feel really uneasy about this, Drake spoke to Issei. Ugh, Drake, what has gotten into you? You've been complaining non-stop about how you feel uneasy about this. Just shut up, Issei said. Partner, you don't understand. Your emotions are causing the evil pieces to react. You need to calm down, the dragon roared in Issei's mind. Issei finally decided temporarily sever the ink between him and Drake, not allowing them to speak to each other. About a minute or so later, he made it to the Kuo College course. It was a tall and luxurious building. It only made sense. Kuo, for whatever reason, has been making a comeback in finance lately, attracting more companies to settle their businesses in the town. Right in front of the building was a small park with a luxurious water fountain and a statue of an old person, probably the founder of the college. Issei would slowly walk up to the building, but he quickly hid behind a tree. Why? Because he saw the entire orc saying their goodbyes to Rias and Akeno. The last thing Issei wanted was to get caught, but he needed a way to suppress his aura. So, he contacted Drake. He connected the link between them once again. Oh, it seems as if you've calmed down. Good, start heading home, Drake said. Listen, Drake, regardless of what you say, I will go into that building, so you might as well respect my decision. I need you to suppress my aura. Drake knew Issei would not budge, so he did the most he could and suppressed his aura so he wouldn't be sensed by any supernatural being. Thanks, Drake, Issei said. They both smiled, but it wouldn't last for long as Issei soon put on a serious face as he saw the orc except for Rias and Akeno leave. The two women finally decided to walk into the luxurious building they call college. The second Issei knew it was safe, he walked into the building as well. It was around 7 p.m. on a Friday, so nobody was around except for students who stayed behind for whatever reason they must have. The inside was fancy. There was a large couch made of what looked to be a very expensive type of leather, and it also had a small coffee table in front of it as well, with a bookcase full of books based on different mythologies and legends. There was also a large desk with a couple of monitors, with the receptionist still working there. Issei looked around the room for a minute. He saw the two women he was looking for an exit out of a door in the left corner of the room. He knew it was leading outside, as there was a window showing the night sky. As soon as he knew it was safe, he walked out the same door. He took a deep breath as he was observing his surroundings. There was a large pathway created by using shattered stones. The rest was surrounded by tall, green grass, and there were a lot of trees around as well. He couldn't tell what species the trees were, but he didn't care. He saw Rias and Akeno walking down the same path, just a couple of meters away from him. It looked like they were walking into another building. By that, he knew he was on the right path so far. The two women walked into the building, indicating that now was the chance to walk in there as well. When he walked into the building, it was the same as last time, luxurious. He saw those women walking up a large staircase. He guessed it was leading to the dorms. Over the course of a few minutes, he followed them up the staircase for what seemed like forever, until they finally made a last right turn, indicating that they were done. They never realized they were being followed, probably because of their lack of awareness around them. From what Issei could see, they were headed toward a double door at the end of the hallway. The double door had blurred windows, and there was a golden engraved case on the door, saying, Student Faculty. The two women finally made it to the door, knocking on it a couple of times. A couple of moments later, a blond man with violet eyes opened the door. He looked to be around 5 feet 11 inches, and he looked rather muscular. Maybe he did some type of martial arts, or maybe a sport. Who's this fuckboy? Issei thought. Who's this fuckboy? Drake thought. The two women he was looking for spoke with the man for a few minutes, and after that, they finally entered. Issei, knowing this was his chance, sprinted past all the doors in the hallway to catch the door close. He just barely made it. He slightly opened the door, not to a point where it was noticeable. He was also able to see through the blurred windows of the room, thanks to his eyesight. Issei, please listen. I have a very bad feeling about that room, Drake yelled. Drake, didn't I tell you? I'm not leaving this place until I get answers, Issei replied. Yes, I understand, but please, hear me out. Do not peek into that room. I feel like if you look into that room your life will change forever, Drake roared. Drake, I told you. I will know what is going on. Nothing will stop me, Issei said. As soon as Issei said this, he once again severed the link between him and the dragon, allowing no contact whatsoever among them. Issei, no. The room was just like most of the campus. Luxurious. There were 2 white couches with gold accents surrounding a dark oak coffee table with gold accents. Further in the room, there were 2 bookshelves taking up each wall. They were both filled to the brim with books. But the room's luxury wasn't the most surprising part of the room. It was the people in the room. There, he saw the two women he was looking for, wrapping themselves around that same man he saw earlier, like a snake eating its prey. The two women were both smiling, a genuine, warm smile. Akeno had the same smile when she finally reconciled with her father. Rias had the same smile when she finally heard Issei loved her. But now, this. The boy and the dragon widened their eyes at the scene they just saw. Issei's eyes turned emotionless. Drake went to the depths of hell to make sure his eyes were telling the truth. There was no doubt this was happening in real life. The first thing Drake did was check up on his partner. He needed to make sure he was okay. Drake couldn't believe it, not a single emotion in sight. He tried to get a hold of him, some way to contact him. He tried again and again, but he couldn't get through to him. It's like his body just shut down. His knees were trembling, his eyes, there was blood flowing out of them. It was a miracle how he was still standing and functional. After giving up on contacting his partner, he decided to check up on his body. His body was reacting in a horrible way. His emotions are exceeding the critical limits. If he went any further, it would happen. How is his body capable of reacting in such a horrible way? It's not possible, Drake said to himself. The evil pieces, they were supposed to give him life. Why are they reacting this way? This shouldn't be possible. Partner, you need to leave, now. Issei still couldn't hear him. Issei, you need to leave, now, GR said. Scene change, inside the room. Listen, you two, I know you both like me, but please, not here. We still have work to do, the man yelled. I promise, we can do this tomorrow, just not now, please. I said I'd go on a date with you two yesterday, the man said. Akeno, being the bitch she is in this story, decided to flirt again. Come on, Itsuki, I know you want this just as much as I want you, so, come on, let's take a break. Akeno began walking towards Itsuki, planning to sit on his lap. Akeno, Rias yelled. Itsuki turned his at light speed to the source of the voice, while Akeno just slowly turned her head to Rias. Itsuki felt pure fear. He just sat there, not moving a single muscle. Akeno turned back to Itsuki, looking at him with a seductive face. He had the most goofy-ass smile on his face. How could he not? Bro was making out with two beauties. Come on, Itsuki idea, I'll show you who's the best. Come here, Akeno said with her voice filled with seduction. Akeno pushed her entire weight onto Itsuki, her breasts pushed onto his chest. He was blushing even more now. His face was basically a tomato. Oh, so now you're trying to get it on with him. Not without me, Rias said. Akeno, stop. You know I love him too. If you don't stop right now, I will have to force you to let go of him. Alright then, Rias, come get him, Akeno said. Rias basically threw herself at Akeno, knocking her over to the other side of the couch. Rias smirked, and Itsuki was sweating bullets. Oh really? Do you love him too? I doubt it. He's the first man I've ever met who hasn't stared at me with a disgusting look. He's kind, he's manly, and he's good looking as well. How could I not fall for him? Akeno said. Rias's blood started to boil at her comment, but at the same time, she was right. Those were some of the many reasons why she fell in love with Itsuki. Sigh, I suppose you have a point, unlike some other dumb and naive pervert I know, Rias said. Akeno's eyes looked down at the remembrance of that man. You know, I'm just happy that we're slowly taking that guy out of our lives. He's just a dumb and naive pervert that foolishly sacrificed his life for us. What a dumbass. And he's obsessed with breasts too. That's all he looks at, Akeno said. Meanwhile, our boy Issei. Issei, I know you heard what they said, but get up. You need to move, Drake roared in Issei's mind. Issei finally managed to get into contact with Drake again, but just for how long? Issei couldn't get up. The evil piece's reaction caused all sorts of cuts and bruises around his body. There was blood leaking out of his eyes, not a single tear. He was in so much pain. His legs were trembling, he couldn't move. But something happened. Some type of golden particles started to form around Issei. He felt like he had strength left, but just barely. With the energy he got, he slowly started to get up, knowing that he will do whatever it takes to survive. Issei, you got up. Quickly leave. Get out of there now, Drake said. But Issei was only standing. He wasn't moving at all. Partner, listen to me. The evil pieces are corrupting. Your body is not in the right place. Move your left arm up if you can hear me. It took a moment, but Issei's left arm slowly moved up. Alright, partner, get out of this place. Walk down the hallway and leave this place. Issei slowly began to walk out of the building, only to find himself in the park. But what would happen there? Issei began to walk down the stairs leading out the dorm. It took a couple of minutes, but he eventually got to the park in front of the school. He sat on one of the benches facing the water fountain in the middle of the park. He had to rest. He was in no condition to do anything. His legs were still trembling. Even if he was sitting down, he looked war-torn. Issei, can I expel? Drake's words were cut off by Issei. I don't get it. Why? They went to such lengths to cheat. And for what? To make me feel bad. Am I that worthless? Issei asked himself. Partner, you don't need to think like that. You're better than that. You don't need them, Drake said, trying to comfort Issei. Yeah, you're right, I don't. But I don't understand why they did it. It just makes no sense, Issei said. Flashback end. Issei was seen lost in thought in the bathroom. He was just standing in front of mirror, thinking of the past events. Even Drake didn't know what to do. He didn't know of any spells that could fix his body's condition. He wanted to help so bad, but he couldn't. Sigh, I suppose it's time I help. Hey, can you hear me? Issei took a look around. He never hear a voice like that. Who was it? Even Drake was confused. He had an assumption of who it was, but doubted it was the entity he was thinking of. Kid, look at your right arm. Issei took a look at his right arm. He saw a golden glow emanating from the opposite side of his palm. Both Drake and Issei's eyes widened. Who was this person inside Issei? It was only now that Drake sensed a second consciousness inside of his partner's body, but it can't be. Hello there, Issei Hyodo. Who are you? Issei asked. Seriously, by now you should know who I am, don't play dumb. Do you not remember that dream you had? Issei was thinking for a while. He put his finger on his chin. As soon as he remembered, his eyes widened. Great Red, Issei asked. Well, there you go, you are correct. I am Great Red, the Apocalypse Dragon, the now known Great Red spoke. Great Red, I do not understand. Why are you living in my host's body? Drake asked out loud. Simple. A fate like this for your host is something I saw coming a mile away. But I find your host very interesting. I decided to seal myself into him. I believe he will reach greater heights, unimaginable power, Great Red said, complimenting the boy. Issei couldn't believe it. Not only he was the host for the almighty dragon, but he complimented him. Wait, but if I am your host, doesn't that mean your body doesn't exist? Issei asked curiously. Yes, I am just as curious as you, partner. That's a rather reckless move if you asked me, Drake said. No need to worry, you two. My body still exists. It looks like it's sleeping, but it's unconscious. If I ever want to leave, which I probably won't, I can, Great Red explained. I guess that makes sense. But what do I do now? I'm going to die soon anyway. So why are you here? Issei asked, his eyes devoid of any emotion at the remembrance of why this happened. You really think I'm going to let my partner die here? I sealed myself in your body for reason, Great Red said. Wait, are you saying you can save me? Issei asked, anxiously. Yes, first let me heal your injuries, Great Red said. The bruises and cuts on Issei's body turned gold, and began to heal, leaving no trace of an injury. Whoa, that was so fast, Issei exclaimed. Again, I am God, I can do whatever I want, little one. Well, what about the evil pieces? They're still killing me, Issei said. Great Red was reminded was those pests. He had an idea, however. Yes, I realized that when I sent myself into your body. Don't worry, I have a plan to expel them. It'll be long and painful. Are you ready? Great Red asked. I guess so, Issei said. Partner, brace yourself. This will be painful, Drake said. Alright, I'm ready, Issei said confidently. I like your resolve. I guess Drake really was smart to choose someone like you, Great said. Great Red put pressure on the evil pieces inside of Issei's body, forcing it to expel itself. Jiaka. Issei couldn't even finish screaming in pain due to coughing up large amounts of blood. The black spots on Issei's body began to bulge and stretch out, indicating that it wants to escape. Issei was still screaming in pain. His voice was slightly mixed with Drake's, giving it an overall deeper tone than normal. A time of several hours, the pieces, one by one, flew out of Issei's body, cracking the wall, or falling on the floor. In the former spot of the evil pieces was a hole pierces through the boy's body. Great Red was expelling the pieces while healing the holes. He eventually finished, but Issei lost consciousness soon after due to exhaustion. He would wake up a bit later on. 3 hours later. It was around 12 a.m. in the morning. He woke up to find himself laying down on the ground in the bathroom. He felt exhausted, but could move nonetheless. Oh, you're finally awake, Parter, Drake asked. Issei looked at his left palm curiously. Yeah, what happened while I was gone? Issei asked. Sigh, honestly, it was very boring. All I did was sleep. I couldn't take you to your bed because I can't just move your body, Drake explained. Oh, well, I'm sorry for making you bored, Issei said sarcastically. Also, that wasn't the only thing that has changed, so has your appearance, Drake said. Huh, what are you talking about? Issei asked. Look at yourself in the mirror, you'll see, Drake said. Issei slowly got up from the ground. His legs were still weak, but not as bad as before. He looked at himself in the mirror. His eyes have never been whiter. He had dark metallic black hair, and crimson red eyes. Even weirder, his hairstyle changed. His twin tails were gone, but he was still recognizable if someone he knew saw him. You know, it was great red choices to make you look like this, not mine, Drake said. Great Red was listening into the conversation, but never spoke. Great Red, you did this? Issei asked. Haha, yes, tell me, what do you think? I'd say I did a pretty good job, Great Red finally spoke. Issei didn't respond for a while for whatever reason, but eventually spoke. Well, I don't hate it, but my old look was nice too, Issei said. Listen, I'm going to be honest, you looked fucking retarded back then, Great Red said. Huh, Issei yelled. Sigh agreed, even I would say you look disgusting, and I don't care about looks as often, and that's saying something. But it's fine, you look better anyways, Drake said. Huh, you too, Issei asked. We're just being honest if anything, both of the dragons said. Ugh, at least I had people around me, Issei said. Oh, you mean your so-called mates, forget it, I doubt they love you anymore, Great Red said. Yeah, I know, but how can I just forget about them? It's so hard, Issei said, tearing up. There's no need to cry, you're a different person now, Drake said. He's right, Issei, you're not the same person, they changed, so you did as well, Great Red said. Issei looked up at himself in the mirror again. He knew they were right. Changing the subject, Great Red spoke. Issei, you should probably start training to use my power. You won't be able to get stronger like this, Great Red said. Issei looked at his right palm with curiosity. I suppose you're right, but where do I even start? Issei asked. You should start by using my most basic attacks, like for example, Dream Manipulation, or Ultimate Dragon Shot, and not to mention my personal balance breaker I made for you, Great Red said. Really, your balance breaker? Issei asked. Yes indeed, right now, all you have is the arm piece. It'll soon grow into a full balance breaker, Great Red said. Whoa, that sounds awesome, Issei said. Issei walked out of the bathroom. He used the elevator and went to the training field to train, but he was interrupted by somebody. However, there's something else to worry about, Great Red said in a serious tone. Issei's eyes became sharp, indicating he was paying attention. Drake knew what he was going to say, but stayed quiet. Your life force is dangerously low. I'd say about 3 years left, but there's a way to fix it, Great Red said. My life force? How did it become so low? Issei yelled. Well, the pieces took a lot more years than I thought it would, about 7,000 years for each piece, Great Red explained. 7,000 times 8. Issei was thinking for 10 seconds but was interrupted. Around 56,000 years, Drake said. What? That's insane, Issei exclaimed. You would be happy, you were a devil at the time, so your life was extended by a great deal, Great Red said. Sigh, I suppose you're right, but didn't you say there was a way to regain the years I lost? Issei asked. Yes, in fact, all you have to do is mate with someone, your life force will share with that person, Great Red said. That's all. I don't even have any lovers, Issei said. That's the problem. I know you, Issei, we've worked together before, and I know you cherish your virginity. But if you don't find someone within those 3 years, I will force you to mate with someone, Great Red said. Scary, but understandable, Issei said. Good, to activate my gear, just do the same thing you do with Drake, Great Red said. Oh, alright. Issei held his palm out. He focused his mind on his right hand. Then, a red and golden gear appeared on his arm. Unlike Drake, the gear covered his entire arm, up to his shoulders. The gear had tons golden gems around it. There were golden spikes sticking out of it as well. It had the same shade of red as Drake's, and there was a large snout on top of the shoulder. Whoa, your gear looks a lot more armored, Issei complimented. Great Red smiles in the gear, but soon got back to business. I think I know just the right trainer for you, Issei, Great Red said. Really? Who? Issei asked. You'll see, I'll call him right now. Okay, Great Red, who is this person? Issei asked. She should be arriving any minute, Great Red said. Issei looked down at the armor on his right arm with a confused look. She? Issei asked. Suddenly, a light blue magic circle with a dragon logo appeared in the middle of the training field. Out of it came a beautiful woman with long, light blue hair and purple eyes. Each eye had an X symbol in it. The woman also had two black, large horns on each side of her head, with streaks of gold in them. Hello, Issei and Drake, the woman roared. Ga, Issei, run, Drake yelled. Issei didn't listen, and Great Red spoke, shutting him up. Sigh, Tiamat, please calm down. Remember, we're in a neutral part of Kuo, and for my sake, don't attack Drake just yet. Okay, Great Red said. And why should I listen to you? I don't care what happens to this town. I'll burn it to the ground if I have to, the now known Tiamat said. Why should you listen to me? Simple, I'm stronger than you. Much, much stronger, even if I am in a sacred gear, Great Red said. Tiamat growled. She knew he was right, but at the same time, she wanted to kill Drake and his host. Alright, fine. Why did you call me here? Tiamat asked. Sigh, listen, Tiamat. I need you to train Issei here. You don't have a choice, so you might as well agree, Great Red asked. Fine, but how exactly do you want me to train him? Tiamat asked curiously. The goal is for Issei to unlock my balance breaker, that's all, Great Red explained. Alright, that seems easy enough, Tiamat said. Also, Great Red continued. Tiamat and Issei looked back at the gear curiously. Do not forget what I told you, Great Red said. Tiamat's eyes furrowed in remembrance. Flashback 3 minutes ago. Also, Tiamat, I have a favor to ask you, Great Red spoke. They were talking privately through the link they had. Alright then, name it, Tiamat said. Sigh, Issei had very few years left, about 3 years to be exact, Great Red said. Tiamat's eyes widened in shock. Whoa, 3 years, how is that possible? Tiamat asked. It's possible, alright. He just barely made it out of the process alive. The evil pieces in his body malfunctioned due to his emotions going past their critical levels, Great Red said. That's right, you mentioned this to me. You expelled the pieces, Tiamat asked. Yeah, that's right. And now about that favor, Great Red said. He was sweating bullets in anxiety. Sigh, I already have an idea of what you could be asking, but it could be something else, so say it, Tiamat said in an authoritative tone. If it comes to it, I will need you to mate with Issei. It's the only way his life force can be restored, Great Red said, hoping she would agree. I'll consider it, but what's in it for me? Tiamat asked. You'll be saving somebody's life. Is that not satisfaction enough? Great Red asked, annoyed. No, Tiamat responded. Fine, if you really want something in return, me, Drake, and Issei will go out looking for the lost treasures he owed you. I swear you have my word, Great Red said. Tiamat thought for a while, but eventually came to a conclusion. Very well, you have my word. If Issei does not find a mate within 3 years, I will mate with him. You have my word, Tiamat said. Remember, Tiamat, this is only a last resort. It will only happen if Issei never finds an actual lover, understood? Great Red asked. Again, you have my word, I won't go against it, Tiamat stated. Ha, I'm glad we agree, Great Red said. Flashback end. Tiamat let out a loud sigh, as if she was annoyed by something. Issei raised an eyebrow at this, wondering what was going on. So, this is the guy I'm going to mate with. While he is a lot more attractive than when I last saw him, I don't know if I want to, but I gave him my word, might as well, Tiamat thought. But at some point, her thoughts were cut off by a voice. Issei, the best way to unlock your balance breaker would be to place your emotions under control. Not only that, you will have to go into hand-to-hand combat. Clear your mind, focus only on the gear itself, align your body's wavelength with the gear, and fight, Great Red said. Alright, Issei, you heard him. Come at me. I'm ready whenever you are, Tiamat said with a battle-hungry grin. Issei closed his eyes and began to focus. He cleared his mind, and only focused and aligned the two wavelengths together. After for what felt like an eternity, it happened. Dragon of Dragon, align, Great Red roared in the gear. The gear began to cover his torso as well. The main color of the torso was also red. There was a massive golden gem in the middle of it, and two slightly smaller yet large gems on each side of the larger gem. there was a massive horn on the back of the armor, representing the horn on Great Red's snout. There was one golden spike above the gem on the front of the armor. It was massive and was pointing downward. Right now, Issei only has the torso and his right arm covered in armor, nothing else. He'll soon unlock the rest. Also, for how to imagine the torso, imagine Issei's true Diablo's dragon god armor, but red and gold, and not fully developed. Only the right arm and torso. Wow, I never actually expected him to unlock the torso this quickly. I may have underestimated him, Tiamat said to herself. Ha, damn right you did, Issei yelled. Issei pulled his arm back, and opening his hand, a large golden sphere began to charge up in his hand. Once it completed charging, it was about the size of the large gem on Issei's armor. Dragon of Dragon, Ultimate Dragon Shot. Issei pulled his arm back and punched the sphere, creating a large beam aimed at Tiamat. The beam had an overall red color with hints of gold in it. Tiamat used her own fire breath to her fullest. Even she knew the dragon shot was capable of destroying a city with little effort. Her fire breath had a bright blue tone to it. It was also extremely powerful. However, it was nothing compared to Drake's, which he specializes in. The dragon shot and her flames were going back and forth. It was causing chaos in the training field. Tons of craters were forming in the field. Partner, you have to stop. This much power could cause the residents to blow up, Drake roared. Issei, he's right, just cancel it out, Great Red exclaimed. Issei knew they were right, but he just started. Tiamat's flames were dying out. At this rate, Issei would win. And he did. Tiamat's flames died out, and Issei managed to get a perfect hit on her. It was incredible. Wow, you actually managed to wipe out Tiamat's flames. There is never a time when you won't impress me, Great Red said. Yeah, but just out of curiosity, how much power was that? Issei asked the dragon in his right arm. That's a predictable question, but I'd say around 0.09%, Great Red said, shocking Drake and Issei, even Tiamat. Tiamat was looking a little beat up. She had a couple of bruises here and there, but she seemed fine overall. Are you kidding? And you're trying to unlock my full power? That could destroy the world, Issei said while sweating bullets. True, but you seem worthy of such power. I guess Ophis did make the right choice to give you her power, Great Red said. Oh yeah, I remember that. She replaced my flesh if I remember, Issei said. Yes, and I did the same, resulting in you awakening my dormant power that was lying within you, Great Red explained. If there's one this I know for sure, Issei Hyodo, you will be the most powerful Red Dragon Emperor to exist. There's no doubt about that, Tiamat thought to herself as she looked at Issei. That only proved how much power lies within my gear. Speed and agility are other things you have to work on. Try using Ascalon for this, Tiamat said. Speed, agility, Issei asked curiously. Yes, Issei, she has a point. Building your body physique may be our main concern for now. You need to rebuild your body from the ground up. It has to be the perfect combination of speed, agility, and durability. Your body is already durable enough due to being in your body, Great Red explained. I guess that's another thing I have to work on. But what does that have to Ascalon? Issei asked. Swordsmanship is probably the fastest way to gain speed. Draw Ascalon out. In the meantime, I'll use my fists to teach you a lesson, Tiamat said with a bloodthirsty grin. It sent shivers down Issei's spine. Alright, boosted gear, Ascalon, Issei shouted, pulling his left arm up. Blade, Drake roared. A silver blade with blue and gold accents appeared out of the second gear on Issei's arms. Welsh Dragon of Dragon, Balance Breaker, Drake roared. Welsh Dragon of Dragon, that doesn't sound right, Tiamat thought. Issei finally had a type of armor. It wasn't much different from his scale mail, but there were some noticeable differences. While his legs, headgear, and left arm looked normal, with red and green gems, his torso and right arms looked different. While the color was still red, the gems engraved in the gear had an extremely bright golden color to it, resembling Great Red's eyes, which are gold. Again, I'm impressed you managed to fuse my gear with Drake's, Great Red said. Yes, this is incredible. I feel the same as when I had an actual body, Drake said, with an excited tone. Issei didn't waste any time. He ran forward at full speed, aiming for Tiamat. All she did was point two fingers in front of Issei. Ascalon went in between her fingers, causing a massive explosion of dust in the field. As soon as the dust faded away, Issei's eyes widened in the armor. She caught Ascalon between her fingers, but she forgot something. Gah! Tiamat yelled. She had forgotten that Ascalon was a blade meant for dragons. Issei saw the opportunity and kicked her in the stomach, sending her flying into the wall. Ah shit, I did it, Issei exclaimed. Tiamat's hands were burning due to the side effects of Ascalon, but that wouldn't stop her. Time skip, 3 hours later. Issei was seen drenched in sweat and a little blood. He was in the training field, but it seemed to be littered with slashes and craters. On the other side of the field, Tiamat could be seen looking in pretty good condition, with minimal scratches and cuts. Pant H, how are you so strong? Issei asked. Ha, well, I am the strongest of the 5 Dragon Kings, Tiamat said with pride in her voice. You are one crazy fighter, damn, Issei said. But Issei passed out as soon as he said that, due to exhaustion. Tiamat quickly ran over to Issei, catching him just in time. I know, this person will become the strongest being I've ever seen. Scene change, unknown location. There was a blonde man with blue eyes sitting in a luxurious chair. The walls and floor were made out of stone. Maybe it was a castle. The man was surrounded by hundreds of maids. He looked quite rich. A young girl with blonde hair and violet eyes walked into the same room as the man. They looked related, maybe their brother and sister. Big brother, it chose somebody, the girl said. Which one? The man asked. Venusner, the girl said. Wow, after all these years, Venusner has finally chosen a host. I just wonder, who might it be? The man said to himself. Ugh, that sword was so damn picky. I am so glad to see it gone, the girl exclaimed. Now, Venusner is a very powerful blade. It can stop and even reverse time on the owner's will. Don't speak of it in such a way, the man said. Yeah, whatever, the girl said, leaving the room. Issei woke up in his room. It was still a mess, but he was basically used to it at this point. He slowly carried himself up and out of his bed, wondering where he was. Where am I? Issei asked himself. Good, you're awake, Great Red said. Issei was still half asleep but eventually pulled himself together. Huh, what is it? Issei asked. Have you ever heard of the sword Venusner? Great Red asked. Issei raised an eyebrow. He's never heard of this, Venusner. Sorry, I haven't, Issei replied. I figured so, let me explain. Go on, Issei said. The abolisher of reason, the sword of destruction, Venusner, is an extremely powerful blade. This blade defies all laws in the known universe and can also reverse and forward time to the user's will. The problem is the blade has a mind of its own. It almost never has a user and is extremely picky with its user, Great Red explained. Issei's eyes widened in amazement. He's never heard of such a powerful weapon existing. But Great Red continued. No matter how tough, eternal, or infinite something is, Venusner can destroy it. Venusner can destroy all matter, nullify magic spells, and erase people's souls. It can negate the immortality of gods and prevent any regeneration. Venusner can do impossible feats by temporarily destroying the laws and principles which make up the world, Great Red explained. Issei couldn't believe it. Such a sword exists. That could make the gods envious. Okay, that's a lot to take in. But why are you telling me this? Issei asked. Hee, quite simple, you see, Venusner chose you, Great Red said, shocking Issei to his core. What are you talking about? Issei asked, stupefied. Yes, Venusner chose you, you are his host, Great Red said with pride in his voice. You're not lying, right? Issei asked. I would never, not to you at least, Great Red replied. Okay, sure, but how do you even know it chose me? Are you just lying? Issei asked. Issei got up from his bed. His room was dark, and it didn't look like anyone was home. He opened his drawer and changed into a pair of white shorts and a black t-shirt. How I know doesn't concern you, Great Red said, sending a shiver down Issei's spine. What time is it? Issei asked himself. It's 5:32 p.m. You've been sleeping for quite a bit, Great Red said. And where are the girls? Issei asked. Why are you asking? By now you should know the answer to a question like that, Great Red said. Oh right, Issei said. Stop worrying about them so much, you need to focus on yourself, Great Red said. Alright, I should probably train more, Issei said, leaving his room. It was pretty dark in the residence, of course, nobody was home. Everyone was busy with something. But little did everyone know that one day, the young security would leave them behind. Time skip, 6 hours later. Issei is seen heading to bed. He was drained. He spent 6 hours training with Tiamat. She was strict. Damn, Tiamat is strict, but in the end, it helps, Issei said to himself. I knew I could count on her. She is quite attractive, No, Great Red asked. Attractive, where is this coming from? Issei asked. Don't play dumb with me, I know you have some type of interest in her, Great Red said. Just shut up, Issei said, falling onto his bed. That same night, Issei had one hell of a dream. Issei's dream. Issei is seen in his room. It was incredibly dark. It was still a mess. If you were to look out the windows, you would see nothing but pitch black. He seemed to be hyperventilating. It spoke. Let me in, Issei. Every time it spoke, the boy had even more trouble breathing. He was also coughing up blood occasionally. The voice seemed to be distorted. It was coming from behind his room door. It was locked. I have a gift for you. I have a present. I have a surprise. Let me in. Issei. Open the door. Issei, don't do it. If you open that door, you'll die. Never trust them. A mighty voice spoke, loud and clear. The boy stopped hyperventilating. A red light emerged out of the boy's left arm, showering the room in the light. Issei came face to face with Drake himself. Huh, Drake, Issei said. Yes, it's me, Drake said, confirming the boy's questions. What was that thing behind the door? Issei asked. I honestly don't even know myself, however, my best guess would probably be your darkest fears, Drake guessed. Issei was stupefied. His darkest fears. Darkest fears? What are you talking about? Issei asked. That was only a guess. I could be wrong. However, I'm glad you didn't give in. It wouldn't have ended well if you did, Drake said. This is only a dream. Even if I tell you that, you won't wake up, Drake said. Oh, so is this like a lucid dream? Issei asked. Sigh, you could say that, but this is far from a lucid dream. Just stay here for now, Drake said. For what seemed like an eternity, the dragon and the boy were lost in thought. Eventually, somebody spoke. Hey, Issei, Drake spoke. Yeah, Drake, Issei said, waking up from his sleep. Have you even heard of an alternate? Drake asked. Alternates? Like a mimic of yourself? Issei asked, confused. Something like that. Do you know how they work? Drake asked. Huh, no I don't, sorry, Issei said. They're like parasites. They have a host. Their main goal is to kill their host, Drake explained. Okay, interesting. But where is this coming from? Issei asked. Alternates are nothing but trouble. They haunt you in your dreams, and in real life. Getting the alternate's curse is the worst way to die for a dragon. Not even I would wish alternate's curse upon my worst enemy, like Albion, Drake said. Dreams? Oh, so basically nightmares. Wait, what is an alternate's curse? Issei asked. When a dragon's mate dies or betrays the male, there is an extremely rare chance they will receive the alternate's curse. The only way you can receive said curse is if an alternate is nearby when you are in a state of despair. However, I am confused as to how you got it. You aren't a dragon. It could be something with the gear, Drake said. If you don't cure yourself, you will die, Drake said. Oh, so basically I'm going to die. Wow, Issei said to himself, his bangs covering his eyes. The way they kill you is unpredictable. They strike when you least expect them. Sometime during the curse, they whisper in your ear and speak information to you that is not desired to be known. It drives you crazy, eventually making you commit suicide, Drake explained. Oh, so you're saying that thing behind the door was an alternate? Issei asked. Yes, that is the most likable conclusion. However, I think there's a way to avoid it, Drake said, making Issei raise his head in hope. Please, tell me, Issei said. If the information is desired, rather than not wanting to be known, then you can survive. There's no other way, Drake said. How do I desire information that won't help me? Issei asked. That's the question I cannot answer. I don't know myself. Try doing some research, Drake said. Whatever it takes, Issei said, his tone more serious. I like your resolve. Any dragon in your state would have gone insane by now, Drake said. Issei smirked, and everything went dark. Issei woke up. Issei slowly opened his eyes. He was again met with the blinding sun rays, but quickly shut the blinds. The first thing he did was check his phone. He saw multiple calls from his school's number. He had been absent for 2 days without any notice in advance. Shit, I'd better take a couple of days off. I'd better let the principal know in advance. Issei slowly got up from his bed. He was pretty weak. Maybe it was the curse. Oh, right, the curse. Issei stood up, just lost in thought. Just what was he going to do? Ugh, why me? Why do I have to suffer? Why me? Issei yelled to himself, his arm punching the wall, leaving a small hole. Partner, what's going on? I felt your emotions spike up. It woke me up, Drake said, his tone worried for his partner. Don't worry, I'm fine, Issei said. Where's Great Red? Issei asked. Sleeping, he'll wake up soon, Drake said. Well, what do I do about the alternate's curse? Issei asked his partner. Try doing some research, and be aware of your surroundings, Drake advised. Alright, I'll stay safe, Issei said. Issei began to walk up to his desk, turned it on, and began his search. He first Googled alternate. And with that, he spent the next 3 days of his life on his computer, trying to save himself. It had been 3 days since Issei started researching about the alternate's curse. The only time he would get up was to go to the bathroom, get food or water. But there were so many things to worry about, he didn't know what to do. However, he did find out a couple things about the curse. If you are to give up on the mate that dies or betrays you, the curse would also be removed. But even then, Issei could never truly let go of the orc, no matter how hard he tried. The alternate is very easy to spot. They take on the appearance of their host, making it extremely easy to spot. Issei, you did more than enough. Take a break, Great Red spoke. Issei was sitting on his desk trying to find any information he could on the alternates. He had found out a lot. Alternates are actually pretty interesting. What could they tell you that could be so bad? Is that so bad that it makes you commit suicide? Issei questioned. They have a mind of their own, and they do whatever they want, Great Red said. Taking the word, the other dragon spoke. Hey partner, isn't it time you worry about that sword? Drake asked. Oh, you're right. Do you know where I can find it? Issei asked. I do know where it is, so you want to head out now? Drake asked. Yeah, it's best if I go out now. I'm probably going to take a break from school. I want to try and gain as much power as possible, Issei said. Haha, that sounds like an amazing idea to me, Great Red roared. Both Issei and Drake's sweat dropped at the larger dragon antics, but let it slide. And thanks to your new appearance, people won't know who you are, Drake added. True, but that could also come with some downsides, Issei said. Issei got up from his chair and turned off his computer. He wanted to put on a new pair of clothes. He took off his pants, but he felt something shaking in his pockets. He looked through only to find 8 pawn pieces in them. Oh, I forgot about those, Great Red said. How could you forget about the most important part of the process? If they found out about these before it could have been game over from the start, Issei yelled. Yes, I know, but I just forgot, Great Red said. Issei let out a sigh of frustration, but it could have been worse now that he thought about it. Well, it could have been worse, Issei whispered to himself. Indeed, partner, Drake said. Issei took off his shirt as well, putting the pawn pieces in a small wooden box on a desk next to his bed. Every time he held the pieces, he would feel his life force slowly draining, so he used a pair of tweezers to put them in the box, waiting for someone to find them. When he finally opened his clothing drawer, he found nothing, Issei yelled. He went to check of other drawers, only to find one black t-shirt and one pair of shredded sweatpants. It was the last thing he had. Well, that's something at least. How did I survive like this? Issei asked himself. I guess buying another pair of clothing is another thing on your to-do list before you leave, Drake asked his partner mentally. Sigh, yeah, let's get ready to head out, Issei said. You're going now, Great Red asked his partner mentally. To the mall, yup, Issei said. Issei put on the last pair of clothing he had left. He decided to head out. He also wanted to get a new pair of shoes. After all, the ones he was wearing was pretty cheap. Issei walked out of the house. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning, so most people at this time would be working. About a couple minutes of walking, he walked past the cursed place he called Kuo Academy. Right, I still have to let the principal know about my plans. Unlike most cases, I can't just email them about this, since I need permission from them to leave as well. If they don't accept my request, I'll just intimidate them with my aura, Issei thought. Issei continued walking for about another 10 minutes, until he eventually made it to the town's one of 3 malls. It was about 7:16 a.m., so most of the stores in the mall were open. He walked in. There were tons of store and food courts. Zara H, Issei said to himself. These are some weird-ass names, Great Red said to his partner. Agreed, I don't get it, Drake said. You two can rant later. Right now, shopping, Issei said in his thoughts. The 2 dragons in his let out a breath of frustration. They knew it was going to be a while, so they decided to get some sleep. Time skip, 30 minutes later. Ugh, Why can't I find anything? Issei roared in his mind. He spent 30 minutes trying to find a good store to buy from. All of the store just had really overpriced clothing. He had a lot of money with him, but some of this was just way too much. Issei looked around his surroundings. He saw a small building in the corner of the mall. It was a modern-looking sign. It had the words Case Moderna, Issei said to himself. That was the name of the store. He decided to walk in, just to see what it was like. The store was pretty well organized. There were lots of designer clothing at a reasonable price. There were also a lot of shoes, but that was something he would buy at another store. He didn't want to risk them being fake. Issei took a glance at the register. There was a woman with bright red hair reaching down to her back, with bright blue eyes. She was wearing a black sweater that was showing her shoulders with black sweatpants. She glanced back at the boy, but stared back at her phone. She was beautiful. If Issei had any less control over himself, he'd be drooling over her. Issei spent the next few minutes looking around the store. Most of the clothing definitely seemed real. None of it used any different material. He looked back at the cashier. He saw a sign above the desk on the wall. What he saw made him smirk. Custom commissions are accepted. You must sign. Ah, this is perfect, Issei thought. He walked up to the cashier. She seemed to be smoking. Hello there. May I schedule a commission? Issei asked the woman. The woman looked up at the boy. He looked no more than 17. How could he have so much money? Yes, you may, but I assure you, standing up from her chair, it is not cheap, the woman said. Issei raised an eyebrow at her words. No need to worry. If it's money you want, I have lots, Issei said. Ah, very well then, follow me, the woman said. The woman began to walk towards a door in the back of the room, with Issei following her. The woman opened the door, leading into a luxurious hallway with lots of gold accents. They both walked in. It was truly beautiful. Darling, we have a customer, the woman yelled. Oh, so she works with her boyfriend. It could be husband. She doesn't look that young. Maybe in her late 20s, Issei thought. Oh, partner, where might you be? A dragon asked Issei in his mind. Issei flinched a little, as he was caught off guard, but he knew who that voice belonged to. Oh, Drake, Issei greeted his partner. Drake yawned. That was a really good sleep. Did you find anything? Drake asked his partner. If there's nothing you want, just make it yourself, Issei said. So you're making custom clothing. I'm not surprised, Drake responded. Hello there, what might your name be? A man asked. Issei quickly snapped back to reality. He was greeted with a man sitting in a large dark oak wood desk. He had dark blue hair with amber-colored eyes. Right behind him was a large window. My name is Issei Hiyoto. It's a pleasure, Issei greeted. My name is Futara Yasuji. The woman next to you is my wife, Itsuki Nakano, Futara said. Issei glanced at the woman next to him, then glanced back at the man. Before we get started, I must ask you to sign a form, Futara said. Oh, what is it? Issei asked. Futara pulled out a form from a stack of papers on his desk and handed it to Issei. Issei took a minute to read the paper. Isn't this the type of shit you would sign when going bungee jumping in a foreign country? Drake asked. Issei heard Drake, but didn't reply. He did sign the paper, however. I'm glad to know you agree, taking the paper from Issei's hands. Now, may I write down what you want made? Futara asked. Oh, I would like a long, black raincoat, reaching down to my knees, a black t-shirt with red accents, and a dark black pair of jeans. I'll show you what kind of design and want on it on my phone. Futara pulled out a post-it note and wrote down what the teen said. Oh, and also, please make it out of the most durable material you have, Issei asked. The last sentence Issei said made Futara flinch a bit. He didn't expect the teen to ask for so much. He quickly wrote that down as a side note, and typed something in his computer. Very well then, I estimate it'll be done in the next 2 weeks, Futara said. Even for Issei, that was a lot of time. He didn't have that, so he made a deal. Get it done by Friday. I'll double the pay, Issei said. Itsuki and Futara were definitely taken aback by the boy's words. Just how much money did he have? Huh, you joking, right? Futara asked. Nope, not in the slightest, Issei responded. Haha, you're on, it's a deal, Futara said. Issei smirked at the man's enthusiasm, but Itsuki had a worried face. Ha, I'm glad to business with you, see you then, Issei said. Issei got out of his chair, leaving the room. Oh god, Futaro, what are we going to do? We can finish that by Friday, Itsuki said, looking back at her husband. Don't worry, with some help, we can get it done, Futara said. Certainly hope you're right, Itsuki said. Issei is seen walking out of the store. The next thing he wants to do is buy a pair of shoes, and then probably leave. He began to walk through the mall again. He was gazing upon the hundreds of stores. There's just so many. Where do I start? Issei asked himself. Over the course of 20 minutes, he had spent his time looking through one shoe store after another. While they all looked nice, there was one store he was looking forward to visiting. Jordan, Issei thought to himself. He was met face to face with a large store with the brand name, Jordan. He walked into the large store. It was very modern. The walls were gray with a slight shine to them, thanks to the lights. The floor had a beige color, with a tile pattern. On each wall, there were shelves filled to the brim with different shoes. The shelves had a bright light in them, making them look more futuristic. The place was also packed with people. He looked around the store for a minute, trying on new shoes. At some point, something caught his eye. He walked towards one of the shelves. It was a full black suede shoe, with bright red accents to it. Think of the Jordan 4 Red Thunder. He flipped the shoe over to the bottom. There was the price tag. Damn, 400, Issei thinking for a minute, I'll buy it. Issei called a worker. He asked for his size and they brought it to him. He bought it and left. Issei is seen walking out of the store with a bag in his hand. He decided to look into it. That sure was a lot of money, but I guess it's reasonable, considering the materials used, Issei thought. It was 8:10 already. Issei had again missed another day of school. It had been 6 days since he's been to school. Oh, that's right. I also have to talk with the principal. There's just no other way, Issei said to himself. I guess I should head home. There's still shit I got to do, Issei thought. Issei was walking for a couple of minutes. He eventually got to the exit of the mall. He didn't notice it, but somebody saw him. A pink-haired girl with pink eyes, and a brown-haired girl. It was Keitase and Murayama. They decided to skip school for fun, but they were entranced by the man that they just saw. Whoa, who was that hottie? Keitase asked. I don't know, but I want a taste of him. Unlike someone I know, Murayama said. I feel you. I don't understand why the orc liked the guy, Keitase said. I don't get what they see in him. All we can really hope for is for them to get over that pervert, Murayama said. Speaking of which, where has he been? He hasn't been to school in about a week, Murayama continued. Ugh, probably something stupid, Keitase said. Little did they know the sad truth about what happened to the boy, and that same truth they would shortly uncover. Scene change, back with Issei. Issei was walking in his neighborhood, intending on going home. Partner, there is another thing you have to do before leaving, Drake spoke in Issei's mind. Yeah, I know about Venusner, Issei responded. If you want, we can go now, Drake spoke. That's right, you told me you knew where the sword was, Issei said. Yes, it is in my cave. There are people living there, Drake said. Your cave? Wait, doesn't that mean there are a bunch of treasures there? Issei asked his partner mentally. Yes, but no taking anything without my permission. Got it, Drake said, sharpening his tone. You have my word, Issei said. Oh, we're already here, Drake said. Issei snapped back to reality. Realizing he was already home, he walked in. Ugh, well, I'm back. All that in the span of 1 hour, Issei said to himself, falling on his couch. You did well today, Drake said, encouraging his partner. Also, I have some unfortunate news, Drake sadly informed his partner. Just tell me, Issei said in a monotone voice. I forgot how far my cave actually is. It is somewhere in Armenia, Drake said. Armenia? What is that? Issei asked. It's a pretty small country, in Southeast Asia, Drake said. Well, if I can get my hands on Venusner, I'll go there I guess, Issei said. Haha, as always, you never failed to impress me, Drake said. Issei smirked. He knew he was going to have one hell of a time being away from Kuo, but for now, he could only wait till Friday. Time skip, the next day. Issei is seen in his bed as usual, sleeping of course. The sun rays were again shining in the boy's eyes, waking him up from his sleep. Ugh, fuck man, turning back to his pillow. Let me sleep, Issei mumbled. I'm not your mother, partner, wake up, you have to go pick up your clothing. Drake and Great Red spoke at the same time. Issei, hearing those words, jumped out of bed, so fast in fact that he fell after getting up. Ow, getting up from the floor, yeah, Thanks for reminding me, Issei said. I'm going to school, picking up the clothing, and heading out right after, no questions asked, Issei said to himself. Issei proceeded to walk into the bathroom and brush his teeth, soon after, heading downstairs to eat breakfast. It was 6:40 a.m., so he still had some time before school started, which was at 7 o'clock. I guess it's time I say goodbye. I better pack my bags, Issei said. He went back up to his room. He made sure the pieces are still in the box, and it was left on a desk next to his bed. He then grabbed his bag and left. Issei looked back at his house, just looking at it for one last time for a long time. This is goodbye, Rias Sakeno, or goodbye. When you find out why I left, try to have some remorse, okay, Issei said. And with that, he left. He began to walk in the same direction he always takes to school. When he got to school, people were shocked to see the new Issei. They could tell, his hairstyle hadn't changed, so he was still recognizable. But at this point, he couldn't care less what people thought about him. He had already suffered enough. After all, he still had the alternate's curse. His first class was just boring. He could only sit there on his phone, waiting for the last period of the day so he could talk to the principal of the school. The time eventually came around. His two friends also came around, but he just ignored them and moved on with the day. Asya and Zenobia, who were in Issei's class, didn't understand why Issei's appearance was like this. Asya wanted to walk up to him, but something stopped her every time she tried. She felt as if she spoke to the person in front of her, she would face a fate even worse than death itself. So she decided to stay quiet. Little did she know, that would be a mistake she would regret for the rest of her life. Issei began to walk up to the door of the principal's office. It was very well built, black double door with golden accents. He knocked on the door, waiting for an answer. Come in, a man spoke. Issei opened the door only to be greeted by a man sitting in a chair with a desk in front of him. The room was very well built. On each side of the room, there were bookshelves filled to the brim with books. They were made out of really dark oak wood, matching the overall theme of the room. The desk and the rest of the things were also made out of the same type of wood. In the back side of the room, there were two couches surrounding a small coffee table. It was very well made. Mr. Hiyoto, it's nice to see you again. How may I help you? The man asked. He was taken aback by Issei's appearance, but stayed calm regardless. The man in front of Issei was Takumi Kamita. He was a wealthy person in his mid-50s. He is married and had 2 children. He is always in a happy mood and most of the teens in the school seem to like him. Hey Mr. Kamita, may I speak to you about something regarding my absences? Issei spoke. Mr. Kamita raised an eyebrow but soon smiled. Very well, pointing to the chair in front of his desk. Please sit down, Mr. Kamita said. Issei sat down on the chair, and soon spoke. So, Mr. Hiyoto, what would you like to speak to me about? Mr. Kamita asked as she took a sip of his coffee. Well, I would like to take the semester off school. Spitting out his coffee. What? Mr. Kamita yelled. Issei sat in a weird position, his legs evenly touching each other, and his arm was neatly laying down on his thighs. As if he was ashamed, he was acting. Please, let me explain. I'm visiting my grandmother's funeral, which is in Armenia. I also have relatives there as well, so I would like to visit them. Pausing for a minute. Also, life here in Kuo really hasn't been treating me well. I just want a break, and I promise I will be back by then, Issei said. Mr. Kamita could only stare. Every once in a while he would get a request like this. He always caught the kids lying. But he really believed him. His acting was quite impressive. He believed him because he knew things like this actually happened to people. They both sat there, with Issei hoping for a good answer. For a couple of minutes, it was silent in the room, but it was eventually broken. Sigh, very well then, Mr. Hiyoto, you may take your time off. Please, return by then. I hope things get better for you by then, Mr. Kamita said. Issei mentally sighed in relief and replied. Thanks, bowing down, Mr. Kamita, Issei said. You don't need to thank me. Enjoy your time off and please get better, Mr. Kamita said. Issei smiled at the man's words. Will do, Issei said as he walked out the door. Issei was walking down the hallways of Kuo Academy, until he reached the gate, but he saw something he really did not want to see. There they were, Asya and Zenobia. They were talking to other people from the class, then glanced at Issei. They could only stare in confusion. Why did Issei look so different, and in just 5 days? They wanted to speak to him, but something was stopping them. Even if they did nothing wrong, you don't even spare a glance at them. Drake asked his partner mentally. It just wouldn't feel right to talk to them, especially after what Rias and Akeno did, and there's a good chance they know what those two did. Could it be possible they did the same? Issei asked his partner. It's definitely a possibility, just not as likely, Drake said. Is there a way to find out if they were involved in anything similar? Issei asked. Yeah, I can, just give me a minute, Drake said. Alright, Issei said. Issei began to walk to the mall. It was around 3:35 p.m., so he still had a lot of time before the store closed. At some point, the dragon responded. No, this can't be true, right, Drake thought. Drake couldn't believe what he just found out, but he was also extremely angered. He had no choice but to tell Issei. Partner, in a depressed tone, which Issei recognized, they have, and you won't like it, either of them is virgins, Drake said. Issei's eyes immediately lost all emotion. He couldn't believe it, but he wasn't losing control. Who? Issei said in a dead voice. Saji, and also sensed traces of Albion, Drake said. Issei could only tear up. His best friend, Saji, and his rival, Vali, went behind his back like this. Just why? Issei did nothing but continue walking. He said nothing, just walked. He eventually made it to the mall, but he didn't want to go. He just wanted to walk in front of a train and commit suicide. Hey Drake, Issei asked. Yeah, partner, Drake said, worried for his partner. What would you do if I killed myself? Issei asked his partner. Drake had no words. He already started having suicidal thoughts. Why so quickly? Partner, don't think like that. They're worthless people who toyed with your heart. Make them pay like a fearless dragon, Drake roared in Issei's mind. Issei didn't seem affected by the first thing Drake said, but revenge. Hell yeah. Success is the best revenge, isn't that what they all say? Issei asked. You're right. I couldn't have said it better myself, Drake said. Issei smirked. He began walking again. Into the mall, of course. He eventually made it to the back of the mall, where the store was, and walked in. He saw Itsuki patiently waiting at her desk for her client, but immediately spotted the boy he was looking for the second he walked in. So you're here. Getting up from her chair. Follow me, Itsuki said. They both proceeded to walk in the same direction they did the last time, through the hallway from last time. Darling, he's here, Itsuki yelled as they both walked down the hallway. Issei really didn't know what to expect, as he did show them the design he wanted for the clothing, but he didn't know if they would do a good job. They eventually got to Futara's office. It was a mess. There were papers scattered all over the floor, pencils stuck onto the walls. Probably a good sign of severe frustration. Hey Futaru, how are you? Issei asked, trying to hold in his laughter at how dumb he looked. He looked like a fucking mess. He looked like he has a bed head. He also had some not invisible of eye bags. My mental condition is not okay, getting up from his chair, but we got it done, Futaru replied. You can follow me, Itsuki said as she walked into another room with Issei. There it was, his clothing. It was hanging on a pole with his pants and shirt. It looked amazing. It was so much better than expected, especially from such a small brand. This is amazing, caressing the raincoat. You guys did a really good job on this. Thanks. The material we used was something that just finished its experimental phase, so it's ready to be used in combat clothing, Itsuki said. Thanks very much. And how much is the pay? Issei asked. Oh, go ask my husband, he'll tell you, Itsuki replied. Issei walked out of the room and into Futaru's office. So, how mu? 2,220, Futara said. Issei's sweat dropped, but let it slide. He reached into his pocket, and got out his wallet and pulled out his card. Do you take credit? Issei asked as he held a credit card in his hand. Yes, in fact we do, Futara said as he pulled out a transaction machine. Issei walked up to Futara and slid his card in the machine. After a minute, the transition finalized. 2,220, gone, Issei thought. Haha, that's gonna bite you in the ass later on. Drake laughed in his mind. All Issei did was sweat drop. It's gonna hurt, Issei responded to the dragon's words. Issei went back in the room and took his clothing, and just like that, he left. Issei finally left the mall, but he felt happy. He could finally leave the cursed place he called Kuo. That's that. I won't be back for a long time, Issei thought. He was standing outside of his house, wearing his new clothing. With that, he opened a magical circle with the dragon marking on it and left. First destination, Armenia, Drake's cave. Scene change. with Vali. Vali is seen sitting in a chair on what seemed to be a balcony. He was in his mansion with the rest of his team, but with Albion, he immediately started panicking. Vali, I'm not sensing Drake's energy, Albion said. So, me fucking his girlfriends really did work, haha, all we have to do now is wait, then we'll get into a real fight, Vali said. I know, when Drake leaves for a long time, he'll come back stronger, I just know it, Albion said. Haha, it's incredible, Vali said. Vali, I can't stand this much longer, if you continue this I will not hesitate to leave, Albion thought. Scene change, with Issei. Issei appears to be sitting on a bench on top of a mountain. There was also a city in front of the mountain. How did that happen? Are my teleportation powers that bad? I can't even appear in the place I'm thinking of, Issei asked. Not exactly, we're in Armenia, just not in the actual city. Try teleporting to my cave, Drake told his partner mentally. You know, I can't exactly teleport to your cave if I don't know what it looks like, Issei said. It's fine, I'll send your mind pictures of what it looks like. All you have to do is just think about it, Drake said. Issei was panicking a bit, but he controlled himself. Alright, I'm ready, Issei said. Good, Drake said. And with that, a blood-red magic circle appeared under Issei, and disappeared. Issei soon appeared to be standing in front of a mountain. It looked normal. Why? Hey Drake, did you mess something up? Issei asked his partner. Oh, this truly is nostalgic, Drake said. Just with that one sentence, he knew that the mountain in front of him wasn't normal. He decided to inspect the front on the mountain for a couple minutes, only to find nothing. Partner, put your hand on the side of the mountain, I'll do the rest, Drake said. Okay, Issei said, confused. Issei went back to where he teleported. He placed his hand on the mountain. Now repeat the words I say, Drake said. Drake sent a telepathic message to Issei. It was a chant he could use to open the door to Drake's cave. Oh, great crimson dragon. Hear me, allow me to conquer the dungeon you call home, Issei said. After a second of saying that, the side of the mountain cracked in two, leaving a lot of dust, and a cave. Issei didn't even ask questions, he immediately walked in. The cave seemed to magically close itself, a nice feature when trying to keep a base safe. It was pitch black in the cave. He started to walk for about a minute, until a bright light filled the room. What is going on? Issei asked, panicked. Partner, you're fine, Drake said. The light eventually settled down, revealing something incredible to behold. There were massive pools of gold everywhere, filled to the brim with different types of gems and ores. On the other side of the cave, there was a wall full of swords and blades on display. Issei took a look at the blades on display. He figured Venusner would be somewhere around here. Hey Drake, where is Venusner? Issei asked. It should be on the bottom floor, where they live, Drake said, confusing the boy. They, who are they? Issei asked. You'll see when you get there. Now, if I remember correctly, there should be an elevator around here, Drake said. Issei observed his surroundings for a minute. He eventually found an elevator built into the wall, but the door was made out of rocks, rather than it being made out of metal. Right next to the elevator was a tunnel. It seemed to be leading down. Okay, I get the elevator, just not sure what the tunnel is for, Issei said. Even a dragon needs to go to the bottom floor. I used the tunnel to get from one floor to another when I still had a body, Drake explained. That makes sense, Issei said. Issei began to walk in the elevator, pressing the lowest floor, which was 7. After a minute or so, the elevator stopped, and the door opened. He was greeted with something he did not expect. Hundreds of maids were greeting Issei. He appeared to be in some type of underground castle. The walls and floor were all made out of stone, and there was a long, red carpet in front of Issei. It was leading to a man sitting on a throne made out of stone. There were hundreds of blades sticking out of the back of the throne. He had golden, blonde hair with blue eyes. Hello there, who might you be? The man asked. Partner, just calm down. I know him. Just tell him you're the host of Venusner, Drake told his partner mentally. Okay, I got this under control, Issei said to his partner, making the dragon smile. Oh, I'm the host of Venusner, Issei said, making the man's eyes widen slightly. Really now, we can put that to the test. Getting up from his chair, follow me, the man said. The man began to walk in a certain direction but was stopped by Issei. Wait, hold on. I don't know your name, Issei said. The boy's comment made the man chuckle a bit, but he soon replied. My apologies, I prefer to keep my name a secret, so you can just call me Tristan, the now known Tristan said. Alright, sounds good, Issei said. They both continued walking. Quite a coincidence, don't you think, Drake? Issei asked his partner mentally. The fact that you were planning on naming your child, Tristan, if you even had one, Drake asked. Yeah, actually, it sucks that I won't be having one anytime soon, Issei said. Drake became silent. He knew Issei was right. After what seemed like a minute or so, the man spoke again. Here it is, the infamous Venusner, the man said as he pointed to a blade. The blade seemed to be kept on lockdown. It was in a large room in the middle of the lair. The room had 9 feet thick, metal double doors, with golden accents around it. Inside the room, it was very well furnished, white tile floor and white painted walls, and in the middle of the room was the bald Venusner itself. It was encased in bulletproof glass. The second Issei walked into the room, along with Tristan, the sword had an intense reaction. It was trying to break free of the casing, which it did eventually. The blade flew towards Issei, which he just barely dodged. Well done, kid. Looks like I made the right choice, a voice spoke. Tristan and Issei both turned back to see Venusner itself floating in the air. It truly is incredible. After all this time, it has finally chosen a host, Tristan said. I'm guessing that voice belongs to the sword, Issei said. Yes, indeed. I am Venusner. I'm glad I can finally be with my host. I find you interesting. Just what potential could you possess? Venusner asked, coming closer to Issei. Issei didn't respond and grabbed the sword. The blade immediately accepted Issei as a wielder. Just as a thought, you truly are worthy, Venusner spoke. I don't know how powerful you are, but from what Great Red told me, you have the power to defy all laws, Issei said. And that's exactly right, Great Red spoke, startling Issei. You were listening? Issei asked. Of course, how could I not? Great Red said. Issei didn't respond, rather, he looked back at Tristan. Hey, do you know where I can try this out? Issei asked as he looked back at the sword. Yes, we do have a training field. It is on the 6th floor. You're more than welcome to check it out, Tristan said. Thanks, and thanks for giving the sword to me, Issei said. Not a problem. If I'm being honest, I kinda wanted that thing gone. I spent way too much money trying to conceal the thing, Tristan said. It's the price you pay for keeping me. After all, you wanted to keep me, Venusner said. Tristan only gritted his teeth in anger, but eventually let it slide. Well, I'll be heading out now, thanks, Issei said as he walked out of the room. No problem, man, come back anytime, Tristan said. Issei only turned back and waved his hands. Haha, will do, Issei said as he kept on walking. Issei decided to head back to the elevator. He went inside and clicked the 6th floor. After a minute, he made it to the 6th floor. The door opened. He was amazed. He was greeted with an incredibly large training field. Nobody was there, so he had it all to himself. But who would he train with? While this is nice and all, who do I train with? Am I really that lonely? Issei said. I may be able to help with that, Great Red spoke. Issei shot his head at his right arm in desperation, while Drake raised an eyebrow in curiosity in the gear. How so? Issei asked. Great Red didn't reply, rather, a blood-red magic circle appeared in front of Issei with a dragon's marking in the middle of it. Out came of the circle what seemed to be a 6-armed robot with katanas in each hand. What is this? Great Red, did you do this? Issei asked as he looked back at his right arm. Yes, in fact I did. This is a robot I had created a while back, but I never had the chance to use it. I guess now I can, Great Red explained. Well, I'm glad you had this thing ready, Issei said as he held Venusner in a battle stance. The robot flew at Issei at unimaginable speeds. He barely had time to block the first swing the robot had done. The robot swung the other katana at Issei's neck, trying to kill him. He didn't have time to just block the attack. He had no choice but to dodge. Even then, he still got a small cut from the katana. You have to pour all your heart and soul for every swing. That's the best way to use me. If you want, you can also use me without your hands. But I'm a bit weaker. I also have a huge downside. I'll let you know that later, Venusner spoke. Issei didn't understand what he meant by the downside, but he took his words and trained for several hours. Time skip, 4 hours later. It was 7:46 p.m. in Armenia. He still had to get used to the time zone, since he would be staying there for a while. Issei was in the same training field as before. He was absolutely drenched in sweat, but the robot seemed fine. Great Red decided it was enough, and teleported the robot away with a magic soul to be used for another time. Alright, I think that settles that. You did some good work today, Issei. Great Red spoke. Pant, yeah, cough, but I'm dying, Issei muttered. You'll be fine, just have an Advil, Drake said. 'Tis but a scratch, Great Red said. The two dragons shared their laughter for a minute, while Issei groaned in annoyance. Suddenly, somebody entered the field. Issei took a look at the elevator door, only to see Tristan walking in with a bottle of cold water, making Issei drool a bit. Tristan walked up to Issei, handing him the water. Hey man, you've been here for quite a while, get some rest, Tristan said. Yeah, you're right, but I will say, using the sword is quite fun, Issei said. You are a pretty good host yourself, I will say that, Venusner said. In my opinion, you were way too picky, Tristan spoke. Venusner outright ignored Tristan's antics, and focused on Issei. Hey Issei, do you remember that downside I told you about earlier? Venusner asked. Oh yeah, you said it was pretty bad. What was it? Issei asked. The cave you're in right now, it's not actually a cave, it's a castle, Venusner said. Oh well, that explains the 7th floor, but what does that have to do with anything? Issei asked, confused. The castle's name is Delsgade. I was directly created from the same magic used to create Delsgade, meaning I am directly linked to Delsgade. Can you guess what that means? Venusner asked. Issei looked at the sword in his hand with curiosity and confusion. Just what was he getting at? I'm surprised you don't understand, Issei. It basically means you can't use the sword unless you're near Delsgade, Tristan spoke. What? So basically I can't use this whenever I want to. That sucks, Issei said. Don't worry, you're fine. The gods have recognized this problem and fixed it long ago. When I choose a host, they are automatically given the power to summon Delsgade, therefore, allowing you to use me whenever you want. The only downside is that summoning Delsgade takes quite a bit of time, Venusner explained. So I'm going to have to summon an entire castle just to use you, Issei said. Yup, Venusner replied in a monotone voice. Great Red, Issei, and Drake all had shocked looks on their faces, but Tristan just had a smirk. Honestly, that's pretty half-assed, Great Red added, getting a chuckle from Tristan and Issei. That's the price you pay if you want to use me. You've only been able to use me because you're in Delsgade, Venusner said. You know, I've had enough surprise for today. Walking to the elevator, Tristan, can you show me a room I can sleep in? Issei asked. No problem, walking towards Issei. Follow me, Tristan said. Issei smiled. They both went up the elevator. Tristan led Issei to his room. He set all his stuff down, and went to sleep. Issei woke up in the exact place he remembered, in Delsgade. There was no sunlight since he was underground. The room he was led into was very well furnished, dark gray tile floor and gray painted walls. He had a king-size bed with red sheets and a white-colored casing. Across from the bed was 75-inch flat-screen TV. Issei finally got up from the bed, still half asleep. Morning partner, glad to see you're awake, Drake spoke in Issei's mind. Mornin' Drake, Issei said in his mind. Issei finally got up from his bed. He was only wearing his shirt and pants he got from the store, and his raincoat was hanging on a clothing rack. He got up from his bed and put on the raincoat. He decided to leave his room. Issei was walking down the hallway of Delsgade. It was still unbelievable. Every time he had to use his sword, he had to summon this castle. Oh god, just how am I going to summon something of this size? Issei thought. Just train your magic reserves. After all, summoning Delsgade consumes a pretty decent amount of magic. So even if you do summon it, you won't be able to sustain that magic for a long time, Drake explained. But aren't I supposed to be training with Venusner itself? Issei asked. Remember, you're only able to use the sword because you're in Delsgade right now. You should try doing both. But don't overdo it, Drake said. While the two were thinking, another dragon seemed to have awoken. Oh, I see you're both awake. Good morning, Great Red said. Oh, hey Red, good morning, Issei said. Still, thinking about that sword, it's not the only thing you should be thinking about, Great Red said. Huh, what are you talking about? Issei asked. I'm talking about your balance breaker. Right now, you've just combined mine and Drake's gear. You should try unlocking the rest of my armor, Great Red explained. Oh, you're right. I work on that as well, Issei said. Scene change, orc. Rias and the rest of her peerage were seen in the clubroom, but there was somebody unfamiliar in the room as well. But Reason, Saji, and Vali were in there as well. They were both sitting down on the two couches in the middle of the room, while the rest was standing. Rias was sitting at her former desk because Issei took over her position after heading off to college. Akeno was also next to Rias. They both decided to visit because it was a half day for them. Issei was looking out the school window just admiring the view, and Irina was seen standing next to her, but she was facing the other way. Zenobia was also sitting on the couch, comforting herself next to Vali. He wasn't objecting to any of her treatment, however, and Koneko was sitting next to Saji. She was close to him but not as close as Zenobia with Vali. Rosweiss wasn't there. She was still at the Norse Pantheon. She did call back the day before, and she said she would be back within the next 2 weeks or so. After a minute of silence, Rias finally spoke. "Hello everyone, I'm glad you could make it. I just wasn't to share something with you," Rias finally spoke. Everyone in the room turned their head to Rias, who became quiet again. "I just wanted you to meet someone." Glancing at the unknown person in the room, "Meet Arthur," Rias said. Everyone else in the room looked at the unknown figure named Arthur. In the room, he had short, golden, blonde hair and dark purple eyes. He had an embarrassed look on his face. "He has an extremely powerful sacred gear. I'm planning on adding him to the peerage soon. You can also consider him the boyfriend of me and Akeno," Rias said. Issei and Zenobia also had smiles on their faces after hearing that, but for Irina, it was a different story. She had a confused look on her face. That was the last thing she expected to hear from Rias. After all, wasn't Issei the one she loved? Boyfriend, what is she talking about? Irina thought. But for some reason, she didn't speak, but she wanted to, but something was stopping her. The only thing she could do without gagging was asking where Issei was. "Well Arthur, you are one lucky guy," Zenobia said. Arthur only glanced at Zenobia and smiled. "Really, you think?" Arthur asked. "Why of course, Rias is the king of our peerage after all," Zenobia replied. Irina couldn't take much more of this, so she eventually spoke up, but she had trouble doing so. "Hey Rias, where is Issei?" Irina asked. Rias and the rest of the clubroom turned their heads to Irina, making her flinch. They all had curious looks on their faces. "Issei, I have no idea. He was here yesterday, but not today. He was also absent the entire week before that day," Issei said, making Irina even madder. "Something could have happened to him. He was gone for the entire week, and you didn't even visit him," Irina thought. Even weirder, he looked different. His hair was a lot darker, and his eyes had a different color. It looked like it was red, Zenobia added. "That isn't right. I'm sure he's fine," Rias said. "We shouldn't be worrying. This is Issei we're talking about," Zenobia said. "Yeah, you're right," Issei said. Arthur, who didn't know who they were talking about, finally spoke up. I'm sorry, but who is this Issei person?" Arthur asked. Rias glanced back at Arthur. She had a reassuring look on her face and began to speak. I forgot to tell you, Issei is another member of our peerage. He's quite powerful," Rias said. Arthur was thinking for a minute, until his eyes widened. "No, it can't be him. He's just some random pervert," Arthur thought. "By any chance, might his last name be Hyodo?" Arthur asked. Rias and the rest of her peerage had surprised expressions on their face. They never expected him to know who Issei was. "Yeah, it is actually. How do you know?" Akeno asked. "No way. I don't believe it. How can that pervert be a part of your peerage?" Arthur said. "Yes, I know what you're thinking. It's a little strange, but Issei is in fact very powerful. He has the boosted gear, one of the 13 varieties of Longinus. The gear is known for killing gods," Rias said. Arthur could only stare in shock. He never expected the pervert to be so strong. "But I can't help but wonder, how do you know him?" Akeno asked. "Well, I used to attend Kuo Academy. The year before I graduated, I would always see him peeping on other girls in some club. He would always be with 2 other people," Arthur explained. "Well, I'm not that surprised. That's how most people in the school know him. But he's a force to be reckoned with," Koneko spoke. "But another thing, he's already defeated a god. It was Loki. He used Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, to do so," Koneko continued. Arthur couldn't believe it. How could somebody like that defeat a god? He wouldn't believe it, never. But little did all the other girls know, except Irina. They had just lost the one person who truly loved them. Scene change, back with Issei. "Achoo," Issei sneezed. "Fuck, is somebody gossiping about me? What the fuck?" Issei asked himself. He appeared to be in the same training field as last time. He was using the same robot as last time, but quickly took a water break. He was in his balance breaker while using Venusner. It was definitely a power drainer. Damn, we are a good team, don't you think? Issei asked. Yes, the power of destroying all the laws in the universe is truly incredible, Venusner added. The robot was in pretty bad shape. It had a lot of cuts and dents. Yeah, but you didn't technically cut the robot. Since I can defy all laws in the known universe, somebody dodging my attack won't mean they avoided the attack. It would still hit them regardless, Venusner said. Damn, you are powerful, Issei said. Haha, why thanks, Venusner said. Issei took a look back at his right arm. He started to speak. Hey, Great Red, you think you can repair the robot? Glancing at the robot. It doesn't look like it's in good shape, Issei said. Don't worry, I'm already on it, Great Red said. The robot's damages began to repair automatically and at a rapid pace. It was impressive. Damn, that was fast, Issei said, shocked. I always take pride in my abilities to fix objects to their former state, Great Red exclaimed. Issei ignored Great Red's comment and focused on something else. Hey Venusner, glancing at the blade in his hand, if I can summon Delskade, does that mean it's technically my castle? Issei asked. Yes, it does, but at the same time, it doesn't. I originally belonged to one other host, and that's it. He was the one who created me and Delskade, but for some unknown reason, he went missing, never to be seen again. Even I don't know what happened to him. He's probably dead, Venusner explained. So if he's dead, it's my castle? Issei asked. Yes, it does. Use my power wisely, Venusner said. You have my word. I swear on it, Issei said. Good, now keep on training, Venusner said. Time skip. 4 hours later, 8:35 p.m. Issei had been going at it with the training robot for the next few hours. He finally managed to unlock Great Red's entire balance breaker. Try imagining the Cardinal Crimson promotion with golden lights instead of red. Issei was sitting on the same bench he always did when he was taking a break from training. He had gotten a lot better using Venusner, and how to use its abilities. He was learning how to use it without holding it in his hands. Damn, I'm tired, Issei said. He was drenched in sweat as well as a little blood. Suddenly Issei's stomach growled. Well, it is expected. I haven't eaten in about a day, Issei thought. Hungry, partner, you should go out to eat. Some of the food in this country is truly something to die for, Drake spoke. Well, I guess my decision is made. I'll go get ready, Issei said as he went back to the elevator. Issei went back to the 7th floor, and when the elevator opened, he was greeted by somebody unexpected. In front of him was a young girl with dark, blonde hair and vibrant, violet eyes. She looked beautiful and had a voluptuous figure, long legs and big breasts. Whoa, who's this hottie? Issei thought. Haha, I can't believe it. Did the broken dragon just find another lover? Drake roared. Great Red couldn't believe it either. He was surprised to another degree. The woman glanced at Issei and started to speak. Oh, might you be the host of Venusner? My father did tell me somebody was going to be staying here for a while, the woman spoke. Issei didn't reply, rather, he just kept staring at her. He was basically observing every aspect of her body. She realized this and spoke. Oh, you like my body? The woman asked, snapping Issei out of his thoughts. Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I swear, Issei said. The woman could only giggle, making Issei groan in shame. No need to worry, you're fine. You can call me Araxia, Araxia said. Oh, alright then Araxia, my name is Issei Hyodo. It's nice to meet you, Issei spoke. Yufu, likewise Issei. But can you tell me why you're here? Araxia asked. Oh, I wanted to see Tristan. Do you know where he is by any chance? Issei asked. Tristan, oh that's right, he gave him a fake name. Oh well, Araxia thought. Sorry, Tristan went out of Delskade to get work done. If you want, I can leave a message for him, Araxia said. Oh alright, just tell him I'll be going out as well. I'll be back later today, Issei said. Oh okay, I'll let him know, Araxia said. Thanks very much, Issei said as he left for the elevator. Time skip, 1 hour later. Issei had finished his food and walked out of one of the most popular restaurants in the city. He felt a lot better now that he had eaten, but what now? But for Drake, it was a little different. Partner, I'm sensing a disturbing amount of magical power from one of the mountains southwest of us, Drake said. Seriously, are you sure it isn't Delskade? Issei asked. I'm sure it is not Delskade. Delskade isn't in the southwest part of this place. I'll tell you where to go, just equip your balance breaker, Drake said. Yeah, Drake, I'm kinda in a neutral part of the city. I can't really do that, Issei said. Fuck, just get to an uncrowded spot, Drake said. Issei started to observe his surroundings and started running. He eventually found a dark alleyway with nobody in it. You know what, it'll do, Issei thought as he ran through the alleyway. The second he got there, he unfolded his wings. He had 3 sets of wings. It had a red color to it with golden, semi-translucent wings. Imagining the Cardinal Crimson promotion wings, but with the same red outline and golden particles falling from it. Issei started to fly off, making sure he couldn't be seen. He flew just above the clouds. 4 minutes later, Issei eventually made it to the location Drake was talking about. It was a small church atop a mountain. It looked abandoned. Drake, Issei said as he was looking at the church. Yeah, partner, there's no doubt about it, Drake said. Issei flew even closer to the church, kicking down the 2 double doors leading into the church. Bang! Let's just say the view wasn't very pleasant to look at. There was a teenage girl with light gray hair reaching down to her back, hanging on a crucifix. It reminded Issei of Asya, but he put that aside. The girl seemed to be unconscious. The girls seemed to be surrounded by hundreds of exorcists. All are wearing black trench coats with a hoodie on, as if they were trying not to have their identities revealed. They were all armed with pitchforks and daggers. All of the exorcists turned their heads to the noise heard. All they saw is what seemed to be a shadow of a man wearing some sort of armor. The moonlight made it so they couldn't fully see the armor. Issei didn't think twice. He summoned Ascalon and started killing the exorcists one by one. It was a horrible sight. Ascalon, Issei yelled. Blade, Drake roared. Issei ran through the crowd of exorcists, killing 3 or 2 with each step he took. You could say his training really paid off. After a minute or 2, all of the exorcists were dead. However, one of the exorcists next to Issei, who was on the verge of death, wrapped his arm around Issei's legs and started to mutter. Who are you? The man muttered. Issei looked back at the man, who died while trying to speak. He then looked back up at the girl on the crucifix. Issei inspected her a bit closer and realized she was chained to the crucifix. Issei put his hands on the chains. They were significantly weaker. He could tell. It was probably the fact that Issei killed the one who controlled the power of the chains. With a little effort, he broke the chains, and the girl fell down, only to land in Issei's arms. He walked to one of the benches and laid the girl down. He didn't know what to do with the girl. But death wasn't one of the things that would happen to her, that's for sure. After a minute or so, the girl opened her eyes, revealing the fact that she was heterochromatic. She had one bright red eye and one bright blue eye. The girl stared at the suit of armor in front of her, and eventually she spoke. Who are you? The girl spoke. She sounded no more than 16 years old, the average age for a high school DxD character. No. I just saved you from 100 or so exorcists, you owe me. Now tell me, why were they trying to kill you? Issei asked. The girl arched her head only to see a pile of dead bodies. She shivered a bit but kept her cool. It was because I'm a descendant of somebody, the girl said. Issei raised his eyebrow. Of who? Of who? Issei asked. The girl stuttered a bit, as if she didn't want to reveal who it was. Anos Voldigode, the girl said. Issei only raised his eyebrow in even more confusion. Who is Anos Voldigode? But for somebody else in the gear, it was different. Wait, the Anos Voldigode, Great Red spoke out loud in the gear. Please don't kill me. I'll do anything, I swear, the girl yelled. She moved back a bit in fear. Calm down, we won't kill you, Issei said, calming the girl down. Issei then looked at his right arm. Great Red, who is Anos Voldigode? Issei asked. Of course, you don't know. I'll explain. Anos Voldigode was the first ever Devil King. He was a man with immeasurable power. He controlled the power of destruction. He was also a great friend of mine. That power earned him the title, the true Devil King of Destruction, Great Red explained. Issei was shocked, to say the least. He never knew of a man so powerful before, but Great Red still had some things to say. But it is a little strange. As for the Voldigode bloodline, Anos blood is the king of destruction. The Voldigode bloodline has always had trouble having children because their destructive sources are against birth. Death and destruction are the nourishment of the fetus. The closer the mother is to destruction, the better the environment for the birth of the child. The death of Anos' mother, as she gave birth to Anos, contributed to Anos' immense destructive power. Furthermore, Anos is a lion of destruction capable of destroying anything and everything in the known universe. king of like Venusner, Great Red explained. So basically, she's a miracle, Issei said. Yeah, to put it simply, Great Red replied. While the two were talking, the girl finally spoke. Hey, I'm sorry for interrupting your conversation, but what is your name? The girl asked as she stared at Issei. Issei glanced back at the girl and started to speak. My apologies. Deactivating his balance breaker. My name is Issei Hyodo. What is yours? The girl shuddered for a minute, not knowing how to reply, but she eventually did. My name, it's Maria Voldigode, the girl spoke. Wait, so you're a direct descendant of Anos Voldigode? Issei asked. Yes, I am, Maria spoke. This is very interesting, Issei, maybe you should help her, she could be of good use, Great Red spoke. That might not be a terrible idea, having her join me would be beneficial, Issei thought. Jay join you? Maria asked. Issei glanced back at Maria, who was still sitting on the bench. Yeah, you can come live with me, I plan to travel the world, so what do you say? Opening his arm out in front of her. Want to join me? Issei asked. Maria didn't know how to respond. Was she just given a second chance at life? Was it a miracle? Regardless, she opened her hand and put it on Issei's. Yes, thanks, Maria said. Issei smiled, and so did Issei. They both stood there for a minute, eventually deciding to leave the church. Come on, I'll take you back to where I live, Issei said as he unfolded his wings. Maria could only stare at the red and golden wings in front of her. It was truly beautiful. Issei grabbed her from the back, his hands in front of her stomach, and flew up. As to not be seen, he flew just right above the clouds. 30 minutes later, Issei had finally made it to Delskade, or Drake's Cave, which was right above Delskade. He walked up to the front of the mountainside and put his hand on it. Oh, great Crimson Dragon. Hear me, allow me to conquer the dungeon you call home, Issei said. The mountain began to shake, and the wall began to crack and break down. Maria, who was hiding behind Issei out of fear, finally got up after the shaking stopped. Issei began to walk forward, with Maria following him from behind. After a minute of walking in the cave, they made it to the treasury room. The room was full of riches. Maria, who was staring at the pools of gold, snapped out of her thoughts and looked around the room, finding Issei walking towards the stairs with Maria, who caught up to him. They both climbed up the stairs until they reached what appeared to be the 7th floor. It seemed as if a castle was placed on this level. Whoa, is this your castle? Maria asked, shocked. Yeah, you could say that, Issei said. While the two were talking, somebody entered the place. Oh, Issei, you're back, Tristan asked. Both Issei and Maria turned their heads to where they heard the voice, only to see Tristan walk into the room. Oh, hey Tristan, sorry, I took a lot longer than I thought, Issei said, his hand on the back of his head. Hey man, it's not a problem. Glancing at the girl next to Issei. Oh, who is this? Tristan asked. Issei looked back at Maria, then at Tristan. Right, this is Maria, I saved her from a church of exorcists, Issei said. Tristan's eyes slightly widened. Wow Issei, sometimes you're just too nice. That might bite you in the ass later on, Tristan said, letting out a sigh. Hey man, I'm just trying to be a good person, Issei said. Tristan let out a chuckle. Alright then, Issei. Looking back at Maria, oh if you like, I can lead her to a room, Tristan spoke. Oh that's right, I was going to ask you to do that, thanks, Issei said. Sounds good. Looking at Maria, come on, let's go, Tristan said. Maria didn't know how to respond, but she followed Tristan regardless. Now that that's over, I need to speak to you about something, Issei. Great Red spoke in Issei's mind. Huh, Great Red, what is it? Issei asked. You should probably return back to your original home. You might want to revert the house to its former state. There's just no point in keeping their rooms there anymore. You can use my power to revert it to its original state, Great Red explained. Issei thought about it for a while, but he wasn't entirely wrong. Where did that come from? Plus, I told myself I wouldn't be going back to that place for some time, Issei said. Yes Issei, I know, but it's best if you do so, Great Red explained. Issei only sighed in annoyance, he knew he was right. Fine, but I'll only be there for a short time, Issei said. Issei went back to the stairs and went back to the first floor. He walked out of the cave and flew out. 3 hours later, Issei had finally made it to Kuo. He had fallen asleep halfway through the flight, so Great Red had taken over for him. He seemed to be floating in front of the Hyodo residence. Issei, wake up, Great Red spoke in Issei's mind. Issei only grunted in annoyance, then went back to sleep. Issei, wake up, Great Red roared. Issei's eyes shot open in shock. He was still half asleep, so he fell into a bush next to the residence. Rog, fuck, getting out of the bush. What happened? Issei asked himself. You were sleeping, so I had to wake you up. We're here, by the way, Great Red said. Issei started to observe his surroundings. He was at the Hyodo residence. It was 4:36 p.m. in Kuo. He unfolded his wings and flew up to a balcony at the back of the building, which has an unlocked sliding door. He landed on the balcony and folded his wings. He was about to open the sliding door but was stopped by somebody. Wait, don't open the door, Drake roared in Issei's mind. Issei, out of pure reflex, quickly retracted his hand from the handle of the door and looked at his left arm in confusion. Drake, what are you talking about? Issei asked. Hearing this, Drake decided to speak out loud. I'm sensing a presence in the house. Please think rationally before entering, Drake explained. Oh, okay then. I'll just be back another time, Issei said, about to leave the balcony. Wait, don't leave just yet, Great Red said. Issei again stopped in his tracks, looking at his right arm. Huh, what is it? Issei asked. Go back into the house. At least try to find out who it is. I'll be able to detect the presence more clearly if I get closer to it, Great Red explained. Issei, who was still curious about who could be in his house, went back to the sliding door and opened it slowly but surely. He opened it just to the point where he could squeeze between the door and the wall, as to minimize the noise he made as much as possible, like he was on a stealth mission. He appeared to be in Koneko's room, which was quite dusty since she almost never slept in it. She would always find herself sleeping in Issei's room. It was basically pitch black in the room, but Issei could see quite well in the room, even if he wasn't a devil anymore. He crouched and started to walk to the door and slowly opened it. He tried to be as gentle as possible. He eventually squeezed through the door. The hallway was also pitch black, indicating that nobody had been there in a while. His parents are on vacation again. They called a couple of days prior to Issei leaving, saying they would be back next month. He was going to call them back and explain what the girls were doing, but never had the chance to do so. Huh, it feels like it's that of an angel, Great Red spoke in Issei's mind. An angel? He could only think it would be Irina most likely, but he couldn't be sure. It could have been Michael or Gabriel, but he doubted that was the case. He decided to keep on going, walking in the hallways of the residence, not producing a single decibel from his feet touching the floor. He eventually found himself in front of the door to his room. He slowly opened the door, only to find Irina, Issei whispered. Issei found Irina laying down on his bed. She quickly shot up from the bed, only to have the most relieved face Issei has seen on her. Her eyes were extremely puffy. They had tear markings running down her face. There was no doubt she had been crying. Issei observed the room for a second. He found the wooden box with his former pieces inside. It appeared to be open with one of the pieces on the floor. Issei, Irina said. She quickly ran up to Issei and hugged him. Both of them fell on the floor as Issei was not expecting to be tackled, otherwise he would have caught her. She quickly put her face in front of Issei and kissed him. It was filled with pure love. Issei's eyes widened in shock for a split second before he reciprocated the kiss. After what felt like an eternity, the two broke the kiss for air. A bridge of saliva was the only thing that was left between the two. Irina began to tear up again. Issei, what happened to you? Irina spoke, her tears mixed in with her voice. Partner, she has no other essences on her. Drake spoke in Issei's mind. He was actually smiling in the gear. Yeah, I knew that the second I saw her, Issei spoke in his mind. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you worry. No, don't reply to that. It doesn't matter anymore, you're here, and that's all that matters, Irina spoke as she hugged Issei. Issei didn't do anything but hug her back. They stayed in that position for 10 minutes. They didn't care if they were lying on the cold, hard floor. Issei's body gave Irina more than enough warmth. They eventually broke the hug, and Irina seemed to finally calm down, just ever so slightly, however. Issei, don't ever leave me like that again, okay, Irina whispered, her cries still mixed with her voice. Irina, I promise, never again will I leave without notice again, I swear to you, Issei spoke. Good Baka, Irina spoke. Issei lifted Irina off of him and got up from his position and walked up to the pawn piece on the floor. He picked it up and placed it back in the wooden box, and closed it. Again, Irina decided to speak. Issei, do you know about them? Irina asked. Issei, who was staring at the wooden box in front of him, decided to look back. The girls, yeah, I've known for quite a while, Issei spoke. Irina didn't know what to say. She couldn't believe Issei had to experience what it felt like to live knowing your lovers were cheating on you. Again, Irina began to tear up. I'm sorry, I should have known. If I had just known better about their plans, I could have stopped them, Irina spoke. Irina, you don't need to worry about them. I have no feelings towards them anymore, Issei spoke. Irina didn't know how to respond. She only walked up to Issei and pushed him onto his bed, with Irina laying down on him. Issei, please take me, Irina said, shocking Issei. Was she asking for sex? And now out of all times, why? They both sat in silence for what seemed like an eternity. Irina eventually hummed, waiting for an answer. Irina, are you sure? Issei asked. Yes, Issei, I love you. Before coming here, I went to my parents' house to get this. I guess my complaints about wanting to be intimate with you reached through, Irina said, as pulled out what appeared to be a doorknob with intricate designs. There's no going back, you know, Issei spoke. Oh, I know. Besides, it's appropriate, don't you think? We took each other's first kiss. Well, I took yours, but it was also my first, too, so it's best that we lose our first times to each other, right? Irina replied with a blush on her face. Yeah, you're right. It's always best to lose it to someone you love, Issei said. They both smiled at each other. An interdimensional room was set up. That same day, they both lost their virginity, with Irina orgasming 23 times. And yes, he came inside as he knew that angels are similar to devils and cannot easily conceive children with other supernatural beings, so he wouldn't have to worry too much about a surprise pregnancy. The next day, Issei woke up the next day to find himself sleeping in Irina's embrace. Her entire body weight was against Issei. But he wasn't complaining, and he also saw a mark on her left breast. Congrats, Issei, you've just lost your virginity. Your life force has been shared with hers, and a massive amount of years has been added to your life, and the alternate's curse seems to have completely been erased. Great Red spoke in Issei's mind. Issei listened to what the dragon had to say, but he didn't respond. He only carried himself out of his bed. Due to the noise, Irina also woke up. She moved her arm and carried herself up, as the covers fell from her chest, showing him her large breasts. Her pigtails were also gone, leaving her hair down. Oh, good morning, Issei, Irina said. Issei looked back at Irina and smiled. Hey, Irina, putting his hand on the back of his head. Good morning, Issei spoke. He was very much aroused due to her chest showing. The interdimensional room seemed to have shut off after they finished their business. Irina got up from the bed, also naked, not bothering to dress. A small part of his seed leaked out of her, but Issei didn't seem to notice. However, Issei did notice her having trouble walking. He figured it would be a risky move but still tried. He grabbed her from her back and carried her up, bridal style. She didn't seem to object. He carried her to the living room. She sat down on one of the couches, while Issei sat next to her. Listen, Irina, while I was gone, I was in Armenia. I expelled my evil pieces with the help of Drake and Great Red. I decided it was enough and took off. I went to Armenia because I wanted to visit Drake's cave. Apparently, there was a sword there that had chosen me as its host. I left to go pick it up. I also wanted to take a break from school, so I took a month off. I returned because Great Red said I should revert the house to its original state. Now, I'm here, Issei explained. Irina could only be shocked at what happened to his lover. Even she couldn't believe the words coming out of Issei's mouth. It took a while for her to take in what he said. I know, you can't say anything. I don't blame you honestly, Issei said. Wait, you're going to revert the house to its original state. But why? Irina asked. Because there's just no point in keeping it like this. Plus Rias, Akeno, Asia, and Zenobia still live here. They don't deserve that. So I'm revamping the place, Issei replied. Irina didn't respond, indicating she understood. Issei, knowing this, got up and left the room. Irina looked back and followed him. Issei wanted to clean up his room of all of his porn posters and videos he had originally owned, since they had been moved when the Gremry renovated it, and knew that when he reverted it back, they would go back into place, and he didn't want to see those posters of a busty red-haired girl ever again. When he got to his room, with Irina following him, she sat on his bed. He had already told her she couldn't help him since she had trouble walking, so she just laid down on Issei's bed, watching him before eventually falling asleep. 1 hour later, Issei had finally finished removing all the porn videos and posters from his room. He had Great Red send the posters and videos to dissipate in the dimensional gap. Hey, Great Red, Issei asked as he looked at his right arm. Yes, Issei, Great Red spoke out loud. Do you think you can see if any of the other girls are virgins? You know, look into their dreams, Issei asked. I figured you would eventually ask this question. I'm not surprised. I can, just give me a second, Great Red spoke. Silence. Only two seem to be fine. The white Nikomata seems to have lost her virginity already. But the young Phoenix and Valkyrie seem to be fine, Great Red explained. Issei could only be relieved. He was really glad to hear something that nice, especially at a time of chaos for him. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Now then, about the house, Issei said. As soon as he had finished, he used Great Red's power. Alright, Great Red, I'm ready, Issei spoke in his mind. He held his right arm in the air. Great Red, hearing this, replied to his comment. Haha, I like your enthusiasm, Great Red roared. The space around Issei began to ripple, not making a sound. Irina was still asleep, which relieved Issei. After a couple of minutes, the rippling stopped, revealing the room he was in. It was no different. The posters were still gone, and Irina was still comfortably asleep. The first thing he did was leave the room. He walked around the hallways of the house. He only found 5 rooms, one for Issei, another for his parents, another for Irina, Ravel, and Rosweiss. He had done his job there. Now all he had to do was leave. He went back to his room, where Irina was still sleeping. He was going to leave a note saying he had to leave for Armenia. However, he decided against it. She deserved a better goodbye than that. Seeing as how they were still naked, he decided to get in bed with her, and almost instantly, she cuddled up against him. I can spare an hour or two, Issei thought, laying there as his woman snuggled up against him as he took in her scent. 2 hours later. Irina had just woken up from her nap. It was about 11:42 a.m. in Kuo, and she felt her warm mouth by her side. Hey beautiful, you finally got up, Issei said, taking in her naked form. I thought you left, Irina asked. I told you that I wasn't going to leave without notice, and you deserve better than some note. You deserve to see me before we go our separate ways, Issei said. Irina then noticed the change in the room. You changed it back, huh? Irina said. Yeah, there's only rooms for you, me, my parents, Rosweiss, and Ravel, for now at least, Issei said. What do you mean for now? Irina asked. Well, despite them being virgins as well, according to Great Red, there's still the possibility of them knowing what the others were doing, Issei replied back. I see, well I guess we better get ready, Irina said as she began to maneuver her body over his to get out of bed. The two quickly got ready with a quick shower and dressed themselves up. So you can speak with Michael about the Grimoire. I know Surzek is a Siscon. If he had anything to do with this, it will be the fall of the Alliance, Issei spoke. Irina nodded in understanding facial expression. She knew to let Michael know about what the girls were doing. She figured Michael would let Surzek know about his sister's sexual activities. I got it, Irina said. Oh, and I didn't say this last night, but I love you, Issei said, giving her a kiss. And I love you, Irina moaned into the kiss. Stay safe, I'll be back once a week to check up on you, Issei said, giving her a quick peck on the lips. Okay, and you be careful out there, too, Irina said as they both went their separate ways. With Issei going back to Armenia, she headed to heaven to speak with her superior. She soon found herself in front of Michael himself. Oh, hello there Irina, I'm glad to see you're doing fine, Michael spoke. Yeah, I'm doing fine, Irina spoke, her legs slightly trembling from walking. Michael immediately sensed something was off. This was not how Irina would normally act. She definitely seemed calmer, and her hair was down. He also noticed her legs slightly shaking. She also had traces of the red dragon on her. Michael, who noticed this, immediately asked her. Who did you lose it to? Michael asked, his hand being used as a pillow for his head. He had a feeling of who, he just wanted to hear her say it. Irina looked up at Michael and spoke. Issei, Irina spoke nervously. Michael's eyes showed no sign of surprise. He really wasn't surprised. After all, Irina would always talk about Issei with Gabriel, so he knew basically everything. Well Irina, I'm happy for you, but is that the only reason you came here? Michael asked, his eyebrows slightly raised. Irina hesitated slightly at what she was about to say but controlled herself. No, it's not that. The girls, the Occult Research Club, they've all been cheating on Issei, or most of them at least, Irina said. Michael's eyes widened in surprise. He was familiar with that group after all. They tended to be the headline of things, thanks to Issei, whom he believed that they all loved. You're joking, right? Michael asked, hoping he heard it wrong. I'm sorry, I'm not joking. I swear I wish I was. Saji and Vali are the ones that they are cheating on him with, as well as some human named Alex that Rias found at her college. Irina spoke. A human, but why? Michael asked. She says that he has some ultra-powerful, sacred gear, but I don't believe so, Irina replied, making air quotes when speaking about the sacred gear. Michael didn't reply to her words. Irina, please excuse yourself, and don't leave heaven for some time. It isn't safe for you to trust anyone in Kuo right now, Michael said. Irina didn't reply. She left the room, leaving Michael alone. Michael immediately opened a magic circle call, intending to call Trihexa. He answered. Huh, Michael, why are you calling? If it is you, it can't be anything good, I presume, Trihexa asked. My apologies for calling you without notice, but Irina, my ace, has just informed me of some unfortunate news involving your sister's peerage, Michael replied. Trihexa, who was on the other side of the phone, widened his eyes. What could have happened? Michael, what are you getting at? Trihexa asked. It's just that your sister and the rest of her peerage have been having sexual intercourse with other people. I would tell you to speak to your sister about this, but she may lie, so I suggest investigating the matter. I will also speak to Azazel. According to Irina, your sister claims that he has a powerful sacred gear, but Irina does not think that is the case, Michael spoke. I see, thanks for bringing this to my attention, Trihexa said, and he abruptly hung up the call before Michael could say anything else. Needless to say, Trihexa was pissed, and if what Michael said was true, of course, he knew the Archangel had no reason to lie or become a fallen angel like his fellow colleague, Azazel, so he knew that there would be hell to pay. Trihexa was seen sitting in his chair. He had a desk in front of him indicating he was in his office. His face was full of shock. His sister had just cheated on her lover and thrown him away for somebody weaker, and worse. Grafia, who heard the call, couldn't help but frown. It was quite a surprise. The only emotion she ever showed on her face was a slight smirk or small smile, whenever she was around her husband, son, or adopted brother. She had always figured Ria's spoiled nature would cause her to make a mistake in life. Trihexa, Grafia tried to speak, but her voice was blocked out by the sudden outburst of energy released from Trihexa. Rias, what did you do? Trihexa roared, and the energy release started to crack the windows in the room. Grafia managed to hug Trihexa from the back, slowly calming him down. When Trihexa calmed down, he sat back on his desk. He didn't want to believe it, but Michael told him the news. He wouldn't lie to him, and it's not like he can if he wanted to. What now? She just ended her relationship, and just when I thought I'd have a brother-in-law, Trihexa said. A small tear started to flow down his face. Well, you still do, don't forget, I see him as my younger brother, and no offense to your sister, but I figured her spoiled nature would cause her to trip and make a mistake, one that would not be forgiven by the boy, Grafia said. Yeah, I honestly thought the same. It's best if I call a meeting. It's a good way to settle this, and decide the punishments for the girls, Trihexa suggested, leaning back in his chair. We need to get more information. Did Michael give you any names? Grafia asked. No, damn it, I didn't ask. I was too busy processing the information that he told me and just hung up. Let me contact him again, Trihexa said as he created a communication magic circle. Hello, Michael answered. Hello, Michael. Sorry for abruptly ending our previous call. I was calling to ask if you have any information on the men or women that my sister has associated herself with, Trihexa asked. Yes, as I told you, my ace, Irina, was there, and she said that it was Vali and the Citri heiress pawn Gentrur Saji, along with a human named Alex, who was with your sister and Barakil's daughter, Michael informed him. Thanks for the information, have a good day, Trihexa said, hanging up. Well, a meeting seems like a good idea, but there are people we have to exclude like Vali and his team, along with Sona and her peerage, Grafia explained, since she had been listening in on the call. Trihexa turned her head to his wife. She knew she was right. If people directly involved with the situation were at the meeting, it wouldn't end well. True, and since Azazel and Odin are in charge of Vali, they can punish him. We can also ask Azazel to check on Issei. He probably isn't in a good state, Trihexa said, lowering his head to the floor. They both could only feel terrible for Issei. Now, there was a good chance Issei was suffering, and all because of Trihexi's sister. Very well, would you like me to call Azazel for you? You can write a list of the attendees, Grafia said, opening a magic circle. Yes, thanks Grafia, Trihexa said, calming his expression. Grafia smiled. She left the office, leaving Trihexa alone in his office. Scene change, with Grafia. Grafia began to walk to the room she shared with Surzex. She immediately opened up a magic circle call, intending to call Azazel. She did try to call Azazel a couple of days prior for business reasons, but it went to voicemail, a huge mistake on Azazel's end. To her surprise, he answered. "Huh, Grafia, you don't call me very often, can I help you?" Azazel asked. "Yes, you can. I have some unfortunate news about Ria's peerage, as well as the one that you took in," Grafia said. Azazel raised an eyebrow at Grafia's answer, but he already had an idea of what happened, but he couldn't be sure. "What happened to Issei?" Azazel asked. Grafia let out a sigh and began to speak again. "Well, it's just that Rias and the rest of her peerage, or rather most of them, have been having intercourse with other people, one of them being Vali. It would be best if we investigate," Grafia explained. Azazel went wide-eyed at her words. She had to be joking, right? It just wouldn't make any sense. "Ha, very funny, Grafia," Azazel spoke nonchalantly, but he had a slight hint of worry in his voice. "I apologize, Azazel, but I am not joking, and I never joke, mind you, I'm serious. I wouldn't lie to anybody about this," Grafia said. "It's not like she was wrong, she just has no reason to lie." "Damn it, what now? Is Issei okay?" Azazel asked in a worried tone. "Right now, we have no idea. That's also why I have called you. Please visit Issei. Just make sure he's okay. And another thing that you may need to investigate is that the human named Alex has a sacred gear. According to Rias, it's supposed to be powerful. But we have doubts about that. If you can, look into that as well," Grafia said. "Alright," Azazel said, and the call abruptly ended. "Well, that's settled. Now then, let's plan the meeting. Better get back to Surzex," Grafia thought as she began to walk to her husband's office. Scene change, with Azazel. Azazel was seen sitting on a couch in the Grigori. He had just finished the last few documents involving the repairs of his faction, only to get a call about something that he thought would never happen in his wildest dreams. Shemhazai, who was sitting next to him, had also heard the call. He could only be shocked at Grafia's words. He never expected the peerage to go behind the poor boys' backs. "This is terrible. Would you like me to accompany you in meeting with the boy?" Shemhazai asked. Azazel didn't respond to the question for a few seconds as his bangs were covering his eyes. "No, you're the leader, remember, you need to handle things here," Azazel said as he shot up from the couch and left the room. Leaving Shemhazai alone in the room, Azazel ran to a small balcony located in the Grigori. It was still under construction, so he had to be careful, but that didn't seem to matter to him. He opened up a magic circle, intending to go to the Hyodo residence. When he got there, something wasn't quite right. It wasn't the same house as he remembered. It looked as if the neighborhood had been restored, as houses that he knew the Gremory bought out to make the mansion had also been restored. He had already memorized the coordinates to the Hyodo residence, so he had just teleported there, but the house he had remembered was nowhere in sight. He tried to locate the mansion by flying up, but nothing came up. He tried to locate a house with a trace of supernatural activity, but it was all over as other houses had been restored. However, there was one house that seemed to have more supernatural energy around it. It also helped that he sensed the holy energy of Irina when she was there, plus the former energy of the other girls that once lived there. It was the house in front of him. What is going on? Azazel thought. He flew down to the house and prepared to enter the house that he detected. As expected, the door was locked. He decided to use magic to unlock it, seeing as how no one was around. He also suppressed his aura to not be noticed by anyone else that came by. Thank goodness for having supernatural abilities, unlike other thieves, Azazel thought to himself as he frowned. He slowly opened the door as quietly as he could. Creak. Even with the sound the door produced, he still opened the door. He knew nobody was home, since the entire place was shrouded in darkness. When he walked in, he immediately sensed types of essences, like that of a dragon and angel. He walked in with a confused face. The interior was much smaller than before, but still seemed a little bigger for a house of its size. Okay, just what the fuck is going on? Azazel thought in his mind. He closed the door behind him and began to walk down the hallway from the front door. It seemed to have supernatural activity all over. It still looked nice and clean, but much different than what he was used to seeing. Azazel knew nobody was in the house, so he did what any logical person would do. He went upstairs and checked the rooms, which there was not much anymore, so it was relatively easy to. Every door he had opened, he felt an immediate surge of a familiar energy signature. He felt the energy of some humans in a room, which he believed belonged to Issei's parents, and then the energies of Rosweiss, Revel, and Irina, in other rooms but not that of Rias, Akeno, Koneko, Zenobia, and Asia. He wasn't sure what was going on, but he had an idea of who cheated on his student. Opening the last door, he felt the energy of a dragon and an angel. He realized he was in Issei's room and assumed that Irina was also there, so either she was with him last or last to be in the room. He made a note to speak with Michael. Maybe his ace had some information. So this is Issei's room. Looks clean. I expected some porn around, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Huh, good on him, Azazel said to himself. He was a little proud that his student was maturing. While he observed the room, he also noticed a small wooden box sitting on a drawer next to the bed. Azazel walked up to the box, and when he touched it, he immediately felt a sense of dread. He quickly retracted his hand from the box out of pure instinct. Huh, what the hell, Azazel thought. Azazel knew for sure that something was off about the box in front of him, but at the same time, familiar, as he detected demonic energy coming from it. So he quickly put his hand on the box and opened it. When he opened the box, he was met with 8 pawn pieces, the same pieces that once belonged to Issei Hyodo. Azazel didn't understand. Why were the pieces there? Why were they outside of Issei's body, unless... Issei, what happened to you? There's nobody around, unless the angel took it or you're not dead and found a way to remove these pieces, Azazel asked himself. Azazel snapped out of his thoughts. He knew he had to take this back to Surzex. But first, he added security measures around the house. He figured that with the other girls' things removed, they were clearly no longer wanted by Issei in his house, and what became of their things is anyone's guess. These seals would alert him of any trespassers, but also would ward off tracking of supernatural activity, making it harder for the girls to find it and be unable to teleport automatically inside the house. With his work done and making sure that all doors were locked, he opened up a magic circle for Surzek's office, taking the wooden box with him. At least that way, Rias could not trace them back to the house. This is serious and could cause the fall of the Alliance. As far as I know, Michael's ace may know something, so she may have to be called to speak, Azazel thought to himself. It would cause a shift in the factions, and that shift was because of the immaturity of some girls that took a boy's love for granted, just like one of his former associates did. It made him grimace remembering that fallen angel that brought Issei into the supernatural world, but he also remembered another thing. Barakiel is going to be pissed about this, Azazel thought as he disappeared into the magic circle. Scene change, with Issei. Current location, Issei's subconscious. So now my vision is blurry, I can't see anything, god fuck, sigh, all I can assume here is that I'm not in a good state. So tell me, who are you? An ominous voice spoke, it was full of power and authority. Great, and now I'm hearing things, Drake, you there, Issei spoke to the dragon inside of him. Your dragon friends are asleep for now, you don't need to talk to them. I've only come here to talk with you, and only talk. Again, that same voice spoke. Issei could understand who it was. He never heard the voice before, nor did he know where he was. He seemed to be floating in an endless void as if he was in space. Hey, what did you do to my friends? Who are you? Issei yelled. Sigh, I suppose it would only make sense if you could see me. The voice finally complied with Issei's words. The space around him began to ripple for a bit, blinding Issei's eyes with tons of different flashes of light, from red to green to purple. Why is it that something strange happens to me in every dream I have? Issei thought as he gritted his teeth in anger. You sure are impatient. No worries, I'm almost done. As the voice finished speaking, the flashing light turned to a bright red color, and stayed that way. The light died down. Issei fell face first onto a rock-hard floor. He wasted time getting up as he observed his surroundings. He seemed to be in some sort of hallway, or you could say that. It was mostly pillars. There was an open space between each pillar, leaving nothing but the outside. Just like the underworld, the sky was a bright purple, but it had 2 moons. What is happening? Issei asked himself. He could only be confused. Who wouldn't? Issei began to walk down the hallway. He could see something black at the end of the hallway in the shape of a man, but couldn't exactly point it out. Issei eventually reached a dead end, where he saw a man with dark, black hair. His bangs were covering up his eyes, so he wasn't able to pinpoint the color of his eyes. He seemed to be wearing a black battle uniform, a long coat reaching down to his boots, and red accents around his coat's sleeves. He also had silver-colored shoulder plates with a red outline around them. It was also the same for his legs. It was black instead of silver. Ugh, who are you? Issei asked as he stared at the man in front of him. He felt lightheaded at the sight in front of him. Don't worry, I have no intention of hurting you. Rather, I'd like to thanks, the man said. Okay, you're welcome I guess. But I don't know what I did, or who you are, Issei said. He couldn't understand why he was thanking him. He didn't even know who he was. My apologies, I'm sure you heard of me, thanks to that dragon of his. This makes it easier. I'm Anas Voldegode. The man spoke, nearly shocking Issei. What? No, it's a dream. Drake. Issei could only yell in disbelief, unsure of what to do in the situation. I've already told you, that dragon friend of yours is asleep right now, Anas said. He was holding in a small bit of laughter at Issei's antics. Issei, noticing this, spoke up. Hey, what's so funny? Issei asked. His voice was full of anger. It's nothing, please ignore me, Anas said. Alright, why do you want me? Wait, is this because of Maria? Issei asked out of curiosity. That's half of the reason. I'd like to thanks for saving my bloodline. I was watching her about to get murdered. From the bottom of my heart, thanks. Tell me, what is your name? Anas asked, his voice full of relief. Issei Hyodo, Issei said. Issei Hyodo, is that right? I'll never forget that name. Tell me, what would you like as a reward? Anas asked out of spite. Reward? No, I would rather not. I don't want to be a bother, Issei said, as he put both of his hands out in front of him. Anas raised an eyebrow at his response. He's never heard of someone who wouldn't take up his offer of granting wishes. Please, I insist. It's not right if I don't grant you a wish, Anas said. I'm a little interested in your power of destruction if I'm being honest. I remember Great Red speaking about it, Issei explained. Flashback, the day prior. Scene, Church of Exorcists. But it is a little strange. As for the Voldegode bloodline, Anas' blood is the king of destruction. The Voldegode bloodline has always had trouble having children because their destructive sources are against birth. Death and destruction are the nourishment of the fetus. The closer the mother is to destruction, the better the environment for the birth of the child. The death of Anas' mother, as she gave birth to Anas, contributed to Anas' immense destructive power. Furthermore, Anas is a lion of destruction capable of destroying anything and everything in the known universe. Kinda like Venusner, Great Red explained. So basically, she's a miracle, Issei said. Yeah, to put it simply, Great Red replied. Flashback end. I just saw that. I remember Great Red. He was a good friend of mine. Since we were both gods, we'd often interact with each other. And yes, my mother was killed by humans. While she did die, she still gave birth to me, Anas explained. Whoa man, that's kinda dark, Issei said as his head fell. No need to feel bad, I'm deceased as well, but if I wanted to, I could probably revive myself, Anas said nonchalantly. Wait, what? Then why haven't you done so? Issei asked, stupefied. I simply do not want to. It is peaceful here, and if I do revive myself, it won't end well. Wars would start, just like all those years back, Anas said as he looked away. War? What are you talking about? Issei asked, confused. Anas only took in a deep breath and spoke again. Long ago, around 14,000 years ago, only two races existed, that being demons and humans. Of course, nobody knows this as I've erased all of this from the Supernatural's memories, so for your safety, don't go telling anyone about this. As I was saying, humans and demons would constantly be at war, devils and demons for very different beings. We don't have wings like them, we use our type of teleportation magic. And unlike most beings in this era, who had souls, we demons have sources. It's our soul, but it's extremely fragile. It's a sphere of magic that sits next to your heart. If this said sphere were to be sliced in half, punctured, or crushed, the person would immediately die. If their source no mai is destroyed, not even resurrection would save them. I had many subordinates. Humans would always think the same thing. If I die, they could achieve peace. But humans are weak. Even if the demon race was eventually wiped out, they would only make more enemies, and eventually, they would turn on each other. But they weren't the only ones who desired peace, my race also did, so I came up with the plan. But I couldn't do it alone. The leader of the human race, Hero Cannon, and I formed a small alliance, and I created a spell that would convert the rest of my life force into magic, and separate the human realm, and the demon realm with a door that will not open for at least 2,000 years. I called it Bean 11. But I'm pretty sure you call the demon realm the underworld these days, Anas explained. There and then, I sacrificed my life to create the door, in hopes that the grudge of the humans against demons would die out. But it wasn't the end of me per se. There was a small chance I would be reincarnated 2,000 years after that period. While I was reincarnated, the grudge of the humans finally died out. Soon, I passed. And now, I'm here, Anos said. Huh, interesting story. But what happened when you were reincarnated? Issei asked. An era of peace, while there were grudges that were still held by some humans. Like that guy. I had dealt with them, Anos responded. Since the memories of this piece of history was erased, that would also explain why humans don't have supernatural abilities in this era, Issei said as his finger was on his chin. Correct, good catch, Anos complimented. It's a little strange, Venusner looks like a sword he would wield. After all, the clothing he's wearing, eye color, and hair color look very similar to the color of that damn sword. I suppose it wouldn't hurt to ask, Issei thought to himself. Speaking of the supernatural, there's something I'd like to ask you, Issei said as he raised his hand. Tell me, Anos said. It's a little strange, a sword called Venusner chose me as its host for me to wield. Since your source is based on destruction, and Venusner was also based on destruction, I figured, maybe you know something about it, Issei said. The term Venusner made Anos' eyes slightly widen. No fucking way. I had figured that she'd eventually pick a host, grinning. But not this soon, Anos said. Wait, what, Venusner is a woman, Issei asked. Yes, 14,000 years ago, during the war, I killed the god of annihilation, Abernu. She sided with the human race. She came to my castle to kill me, but instead I killed her. I turned the god's body and source into the sword Venusner, which now annihilates all of reason, Anos explained. Wow, that explains so much. Can you teach me how to use it? Issei asked as he put his fists together. Of course, it's the most I can do to repay you. Using that sword brings back memories, Anos said submissively. So, as a reward, I'd like to learn your power of destruction as my own, so I guess there will be 2 types of destruction powers, Issei said. Really, an interesting choice. Very well then, I'll teach you my power. To start, I'll need to give you a fragment of my soul, which holds my power. But there just cannot be 2 powers called destruction. I don't mind calling it something else, so you can call it, I'm not sure, Anos said. They both stood there in silence for a couple of minutes. Eventually Issei spoke. Annihilation, Issei said as he put his fist on the palm of his hand. Similar to destruction, but with a different name, I like it, Anos responds as he smirked. Now then, walks up to Issei. Have a sample of my power, Anos said as he put his finger on Issei's forehead. Issei's vision began to black out at a rapid pace. He could barely see anything. He began to cover his forehead with his hands in pain, and began to roll on the ground as if he was on fire. Damn it, why does it hurt so much? Issei yelled as he screamed in agony. Well, you asked? You shall receive, Anos said as he grinned. Besides, it looks like your body has accepted my power. Not surprising considering you're a dragon. Well, would you look at that? My power has just fused with your soul, Anos said as he smiled. Issei couldn't speak, as he was breathing heavily on the ground, trying to catch his breath. Pant, I did it. Please teach me, Issei said as he stuttered. Of course, it starts tomorrow, as your body needs some time to fully accept the power. After all, I gave you quite a decent amount, Anos explained. Wait, what? I can't do it now, Issei asked, shocked. I can't do much, it's just 1 day, you can survive. Well, I'm hoping you can, Anos said. Well, I guess I don't mind waiting, and yes, I'll take good care of Maria, I swear, Issei said. I'm counting on you. Now then, see ya, Anos said as he waved his hands. Suddenly, Issei was sent back into the void. Now what? He woke up, and that's what happened. Scene change, Delsgade. Issei is seen peacefully sleeping in his room. Even then, it was still a mess. His coat was on a hanger, and he was sleeping in his combat clothing. While Issei was asleep, his dragons were brewing something malicious. Issei's subconsciousness. Haha, this will be hilarious. A familiar voice spoke. It was Drake. He was awake in Issei's subconsciousness. Great Red was also awake next to him. Wonder why. On 3, 1, 2, 3, Great Red counted down. Roar. Both dragons roared to the top of their lugs in Issei's subconscious. Pretty sure you know what happened next. Yeah, he woke up. Scene change, real world. Location, Delsgade. A scream could be heard from Issei's room. After all, he was just jump scared half to death, especially in his sleep. Help, what is happening? Falling off his bed, help, Issei yelled. Ha, partner, we got you good, Drake roared in Issei's mind. Issei couldn't respond as he was still half asleep, not to mention he fell on the floor. Agreed Drake, that was quite humorous. Great Red agreed with Drake. Issei clenched his fist and pulled himself off of the floor. He could be seen gritting his teeth. Raff, damn you both, Issei yelled out loud. However, the dragon still seemed to be laughing. Ha ha ha, I'm sorry, that was quite a reaction, at least you're awake. Drake tried to keep his cool, but couldn't. However, Great Red stayed in silence, hoping that Issei would not acknowledge him. Damn it, Drake, walking up to his coat hanger. I'll never forgive you for this, Issei said. However, Drake's face was still full of humor. Great Red was about to sigh in relief but kept himself shut. That includes you too, you damn oversized, deformed crimson iguana, Issei yelled. Drake couldn't help but burst out laughing in the gear. I'm sorry, what did you just call me? Say it again, I dare you, Great Red asked with venom mixed in his voice. Issei grinned. You heard me. What are you going to do, steal my lunch money? Issei asked with the same venom in his voice. I could break myself out of the gear and kill you, remember when I first told you I could? Don't push your luck just because you have me, Great Red said. Issei didn't respond, probably a good decision. He only walked out of his room. He appeared to be in the same hallway he is greeted with every morning. As usual, he began walking through. Ah, so you choose life? A wise decision, Great Red said with greed mixed in his voice. Damn, Issei, I would not let that slide. What you gon' do about it? Drake asked. What you gon' do about it? I'ma show you what I'ma do about it, Issei thought. Why are you randomly coming at me? Do you who the fuck I am? Ha ha ha. Great Red, you ugly, dirty, disgusting, dirty nasty donkey piece of shit, Issei said. Oh shit, this is gonna get exciting, Trihexa says in Issei's mind. Time skip, 3 minutes later. In the hallways of Delsgade, Issei could be seen trying to catch his breath. He almost fell on the floor. Great Red's case wasn't much different. He could also be heard panting in the gear as if he was choking on something. But in that same hallway, a young girl with light gray hair and heterochromatic eyes stood. She noticed Issei's trouble breathing and decided to help. Ah, Issei, are you okay? Maria asked as she ran up to him. Issei, hearing her, shot his head up. Hoo, pant, why yeah, I'm fine. I just spoke too much, Issei said, confusing Maria. You sure fucking did. But I have to respect you, you can talk quite fast, Great Red complimented. No response. Spoke too much. With who? There's nobody around, Maria asked. Wait, does she know who Great Red is? Issei thought to himself. Jay just my partner, no worries. I'm fine, Issei said. And it isn't like I can just forget about her. That dream with her ancestor was a lot nicer than I thought it would be, Issei thought to himself. True partner, I saw that dream as well. I couldn't speak to you because that guy severed our link without effort. He is a very powerful being. Anyways, she's the most of your worries. If you let her die, I don't know what'll happen, but it won't be good, Drake said. Well, you're right. It'd be useful to learn her abilities. Let's see how good she'd do in the training field, Issei thought. True, it's best if we measure her powers and see what she's capable of, Drake said. Don't worry, I'm fine, Maria, Issei said as he stood up. Are you sure? Maria asked, worried. Issei only looked at Maria with a warm smile, caused butterflies in her stomach. Also, there's something I'd like to ask you, Issei said. Maria raised an eyebrow at her savior's words but answered regardless. Yes, Maria stuttered by in confusion. Since we're going to be traveling together, I just want to take some time to measure your abilities, just to see what you're capable of. Is that okay with you? Issei asked as he smiled warmly. Yeah, I want to do it, Maria said, excited. Great, let's go. I hope you're ready, especially this early in the morning, Issei said as they both began walking down the hallway. I know I'm ready, and I will say, I have some pretty unique abilities. I can even borrow power from my ancestors if I wanted to, Maria said as she grinned. Quite an impressive power, unlike you. I don't have ancestors with magic power, Issei said as he smiled sadly. Issei's words made Maria raise an eyebrow in curiosity. What are you talking about? You're a human, Maria asked. Not exactly, I'm a former human. I was reincarnated into a devil by another devil. Probably the worst decision I've made. And now, I'm a full-blooded dragon, Issei explained as his smile faded in remembrance of that woman. What? Why do you regret becoming a devil? Maria asked as she was even more curious than before. Well, I was reincarnated by a high-class devil as her pawn in her peerage. She was a woman I adored. She was pretty, nice, supportive, the perfect woman. I had fallen in love with her without even realizing it, and the rest of the peerage fell in love with me. And so did I, Issei explained. His voice had even more despair than the last, but he kept his cool. Okay, but what happened then? Something bad, I know it, Maria said with worry written all over her face. Then, they cheated on me, with my rival, my best friend, and some random guy I don't even know, and so I left. I expelled my pieces and left the town. I don't care what happens to her, she made her decision, and I soon made mine, Issei explained. Maria could only stare at Issei in shock. She didn't even respond, she just stood there. Her bangs were slightly covering her eyes. Damn, I'm so sorry, you've suffered worse than me, gripping her fists. Those damn whores will come crawling back to you, I know it, Maria said. You may very well be right. Right now, all we can do is wait, Issei said. Well, that was the full story. With that, take care.